When our heroine came to, she did not understand what was happening or where she was. Not only was she sitting on the floor holding on to someone's pants, but she was also asking a complete stranger for something. The young man told her in a commanding tone to let him go, as it was very annoying. If a girl thinks that he will now change his attitude towards her, then she is deeply mistaken, because in his eyes she has become even more disgusting. Our heroine did not understand at all what he meant, but replied that she had already thought that the statue could talk, and that it looked somehow unrealistic. The guy said that he would repeat once again that if Lady Canna did not let him go right now, he would cut off her hand. After this, the young man left, and the girl was confused. Because, is this her name? Why did he call her that? She thought that it all looked like madness. Had she really gone back? Canna Addis comes from a family that is responsible for protecting the Western continent. The girl is not only the Duke's eldest daughter, but also an illegitimate child. She was a child who was rejected and not accepted by everyone. They treated her with disdain, saying, "Is this really the eldest daughter? Why doesn't she just shave her head, black hair, and those eyes are just awful." A long time ago, a misfortune happened on this land. It appeared in the form of a black fog, and in an instant swallowed up the southern continent. Because of her hair and eyes, as black as that fog, her very existence was considered a symbol of misfortune, which may be why people in her memories look at her with disdain. Of course, the family was no exception. For her stepmother and sister, she was like an eyesore. Her first younger brother treated her cruelly and constantly bullied her. The second one pretended to be polite, but treated her like a maid, without any respect. The father simply watched all this from the sidelines and did absolutely nothing. Day after day, the girl tried to survive, enduring cruel treatment and reproaches that wounded her no worse than a sharp knife. One day, when she was 14 years old, she woke up in a place unfamiliar to her. As it turned out later, Canna became a girl named Juva, completely unwillingly and for reasons unknown to her. Our heroine was shocked and did not understand how this was possible. Could she really have gotten stuck in an alchemy lab and ended up going crazy? There was no other logical explanation in her head, except that she had gone out of her mind, or that it was just a bad dream. Gradually, she stopped trying to find an answer and simply accepted the situation. Even in this situation, which literally knocked her off her feet, time moved inexorably forward. Anyway, her soul had already united with the body of this girl, so nothing would change. No matter how much she denied it, she had only suicide or resignation left. After this, our heroine began to work hard, but everything turned out to be easier than it seemed at first, because her body retained all the memories and knowledge she had gained. Of course, sometimes she had panic attacks due to psychological trauma, but she was able to cope with it, as she was used to being patient. With this name, Addis began her new life, lived 12 years without resting at all, first passing her final exams ahead of schedule. And then she entered the medical university, where she received a medical license. After that, I worked hard for many years to gain experience. But why did I end up here again? Every time she went to bed, Canna looked at the ceiling, thinking about how well she had worked, and also that everything will continue exactly like this. Up until this moment, everything was like this. Life in the body of Juhva was great, although it took some time to adjust. The girl was very happy that life gave her a lot. There she learned what it was like to be hugged, that someone can genuinely care about you, so I also learned to show kindness. The first to extend a hand, share love, experience someone's warmth, because she could not even dream of it before. The sadly hanging black hair, reminiscent of a foggy eye, Addis convinced herself that she would never see this face again, and, in the end, she was able to forget. The last time she saw this image was when she was 14 years old. She had not changed much, although she had noticeably matured. Now our heroine sees her real face again. She really has returned to her body and the real world. But that man, at first the girl didn't recognize him, even though he looked familiar, if she remembers correctly who it was. Then things are bad for her, because he's like a time bomb. But she is not the same Canna anymore, Addis. No matter how terrible the situation may seem, you first need to try to solve it. You can't just give up. First marriage, then love. The chronology of events is already known, so it will easily conquer the Duke of Sylvian. In general, what's so special about a marriage of convenience? She just needs to get closer to him. All this was written in the diary that our heroine found. The girl wrote that she keeps her notes in another language that no one in this world knows. As Kanna thought, she and Ju Fa swapped bodies for 12 years while Addis was studying to start her own business. This girl fell head over heels in love. The girl told the Duke to use her, but the young man did not understand what she meant. Ju offered to make a contract if he married her. He would be able to get rid of the control of the imperial family because he did not want to marry the second princess. Kanna thought she was just crazy. Why Sylvian? Valentino. Everyone knows how crazy he is. Perhaps it is all about his appearance or false politeness. How can one even propose marriage to such a dangerous person? After reading her diary, our heroine realized that Va fell in love with him at first sight, so she did everything to win his heart. The girl hung posters with declarations of love everywhere. She also sent him flowers, but unfortunately, it was all in vain. If she had been less persistent, the chance of success would have been greater. As a result, the guy rejected her. Even her naked appearance could not soften his gaze. The young man said that if he had known that she was that type of woman, he would never have accepted her proposal. Receiving only contempt in response, Ju decided that she needed to stay strong. Even though this attitude hurts her, she must get him at any cost. She cannot give up. This is the last thing she wrote in her diary. As a result, the girl begged him, clinging to his pants. Now it is clear how our heroine ended up in that situation when she returned. First, you need to calm down and think everything through carefully. Kanna returned to her body, since 12 years have already passed. She is now 26, which means Hava returned to her body. At first, she clung to the Duke with all her might, and then returned to life when she had to go to work. The only question that remains is whether she will be able to heal people at all, but that no longer matters. Since she has memories of those 12 years, it means that Ju will also remember everything that she managed to learn. Our heroine hopes that she will not have any difficulties working as a doctor. Suddenly, Kanna remembered her online store and wondered what would happen to it now. While she lived there, she became very interested in studying botany, so she decided to try something and started making handmade soap, scented candles, and perfume. At first, it was just a hobby, but then I opened a small online store, and just recently, the number of orders began to grow. Addis mentally turned to Jufa and told her not to dare to open her shop. Then she thought about how Valentino always treated her like trash. She was grateful for that because now she knew what needed to be done. It's time to get a divorce. Kanna will inform him about it tomorrow evening when he returns. The girl is sure that he will like this proposal. The only problem is Duke Alexander Addis. Will the father approve of such a decision? Women in this world have almost no rights, so there is no point in even comparing it with her past life. Despite her desire, everything will depend on her father's answer. Most likely, the man will say that she is a disgrace to their family if she is going to die. Then let her do it as a member of the Valentino family. That's exactly how he will react to her wish. But Ju's father, Ha, would be angry at such treatment of his daughter. After which I decided that it would be better to just rest for now and think about all this later. Maybe it was all a nightmare. Then, our heroine remembered how she decided to ask her father about who her mother was. The man immediately jumped up from his seat and hissed that she should not dare mention this woman in front of him. That explained it all. Her father hated not only her mother, but her as well, so everyone just cast disdainful glances at her. When they saw her, her brother's friends whispered that she really did have hair the color of black fog. Sister Orsini was simply incredible. This made the younger brother very angry, so he wanted to hit her. The girl asked him not to do this, since she admits that she was wrong. The young man didn't care at all, so he ordered her to shut her mouth, because her place was among the garbage. After some time, Kanna woke up from someone splashing water on her face. It turned out to be a maid who asked why she was still sleeping. The girl wondered if it was a dream, but the environment had not changed, which meant that this was Duke Valentino's bedroom. While Addis was thinking that it would be nice if all this turned out to be just a bad dream, the maid screamed to see if she could be heard, and she told her to get up. Kanna thought to herself, if she were 14, she wouldn't be able to do anything. She would just cower in fear or try to run away. But now she was no longer that little girl, so she turned to the woman and ordered her to say her name. The maid froze with the jug in her hand and wondered whether it was her imagination or whether the atmosphere had really changed somehow. After which she asked if everything was okay with his head. Her name is Mary Goldian. It's time to get up because you need to greet Madam. The girl replied that no, she was not going to go anywhere, and she did not need these greetings for 300 years. The maid was indignant. What does this mean, lady? Our heroine asked, who she was calling a lady here. She is the Duchess of Valentino, and also the mistress of this mansion. So from now on, let her be called Madame. Mary wondered if she was in her right mind, since she looked like an aristocrat, and decided to behave appropriately or what. All the same, for the Duke she is nothing more than trash, a fake, whom even the family turned away from. Aren't such people called trash, who would even consider someone like her? Therefore, she stated that the owner of this mansion is Mrs. Josephine, and accordingly, hers too. After a short pause, our heroine told her to give this jug back. Then she muttered that there was still water left there, after which she poured the contents over her head. Then she shouted to someone outside the door to immediately bring her a rod, since this maid was too insolent. Having received what she needed, Canna asked why she was standing. Let Mary bare her knees. The woman was indignant. What was she doing? Had she mixed something up? The maid had been in this house longer than her, and besides, she had gained the mistress's trust. Addis interrupted her and said that she was just a servant, the crazy maid who poured water on her mistress, so Kana has every right to punish her, is a duchess after all. Therefore, with the power given to her, she orders her knees to be exposed. If she refuses, she will punish the other maids and also the butler, who was unable to train the servants properly. Let the woman choose whether only she or absolutely all the servants in this estate will receive punishment. Noticing how she was shaking, our heroine thought to herself that she seemed to have scared her so much that she should have realized everything by now. The words of my mother from a past life immediately popped into my head, who said that if she decides to punish someone, then she needs to do it properly. Therefore, since she did not receive an answer, she began to beat the woman with rods on all parts of her body. After the first blow, a person is in shock. After the second, he feels pain. And after the third blow, he begins to beg for forgiveness. Canna asked what she was apologizing for. The maid replied that she had dared to pour water on the lady. The Duchess clarified that it seemed that Mary had hit her in the face to wake her up. The maid asked for forgiveness for that too. Our heroine said that next time she would not forgive such impudence so easily. Let him get out of here. Looking after her, the girl thought that everything would not change in one go. What about Juhva has done something? Addis made her life wonderful, got into a prestigious university, became a doctor, and met the perfect guy. And she turned her life into a real nightmare, where she is not respected at all. Although Canna is an aristocrat, no one takes her into account. They insult her without hesitation, and even look down on her. The thoughts were interrupted by a shrill cry, which ordered the door to be opened immediately. Josephine appeared immediately. Elister, who asked what she allows herself to do, what example she sets. This woman is her mother-in-law and Sylvian's stepmother, and the real owner of the mansion. She reported that the maid had told her something strange. Had the girl forgotten that she was supposed to greet her every morning? It was already almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Canna had not even shown up at lunch. At 7 in the morning, at noon, and at 6 in the evening, our heroine is obliged to greet her 3 times a day. It's a kind of hidden threat and control, so that she doesn't even think about going out anywhere. And Juhva did it obediently because she wanted to get at least a little love, but she shouldn't have done it. You can't expect to be treated well if you are treated like an animal. Addis never lived a normal life, but now everything will change. She will never allow anyone to treat her like that again. So she replied that she did not forget anything. She just did not want to do it. Josephine became Sylvian's stepmother when he lost his mother at the age of 10. Despite the death of the previous duke, she remained in the mansion and still considers herself the head of the family. In order to keep this place for herself, she decided to subordinate Canna, even though she was her mother-in-law. When the woman asked in surprise what she had just said, the girl replied that she would not do it anymore. Elister didn't understand what kind of look that was. She thought that the maid was just exaggerating. Was this really the girl who was ready to eat off the floor, just so she could be loved? Addis was clearly out of her mind, after which she yelled that these were their family traditions, and since she had married her precious son, she should deign to observe them. Our heroine replied that these are traditions that she herself came up with. It seems that this is nothing more than her whims. Isn't it shameful to disgrace the long history of the Valentino family? The woman became completely furious and screamed to be seized immediately. Now she will teach her manners. Let the maid bring the rods, and Mary will bear her legs. Canna noted that this was quite predictable. What else could one expect from her? The maid thought to herself that now she would know how to raise her hand against a lady who was close to her. But the girl told her to remove her hands, then turned to her mother and asked her to do it. Josephine didn't understand why she was smiling. Did she really think that this was all a joke? She would punish her until Addis realized his mistake. Our heroine answered with sarcasm in her voice that beating her daughter-in-law with rods was a method of education worthy of a respected ducal family. When she added that Duke Valentino was probably proud of her, the woman yelled at her to shut her mouth. How dare she interrupt her elders? After which she began to hit her, shouting that she was impudent, that they didn't teach her etiquette in her family, didn't teach her manners, and now they brought her into her house as a daughter-in-law. The girl thought to herself that she no longer cared about these stares. She would not scream and would never do what the countess wanted. The maid was surprised that she had gone completely crazy. How could one change so much in one night? Our heroine has no living place left on her calves. Before, she would have fallen to her knees and begged for forgiveness, but now she can definitely endure it. Having caught her breath a little, the woman asked whether she still hadn't realized her mistake. Canna replied that her only mistake was that she did something against her will. Why should Addis waste her time on her at all? Josephine is just a guest in her house, so why should she please her? The countess was so taken aback that she asked what the girl was talking about, what her house meant, and she was just a guest. Our heroine answered that she is the wife of a duke, and the mansion belongs to him and the duchess. To be honest, Mother should have left this place long ago. Alistair hit her and screamed at her for even daring to consider her a guest in her own home. When the girl fell to the floor, the countess ordered that no doctors be called and that no medicine be given to her until she realized her mistake. Josephine still couldn't calm down and was indignant at this impudence. Who the hell was she? Some kind of ugly woman with black hair. It was impossible to accept her as a daughter-in-law. If only Sylvian had married the second princess, then she would not only have been the widow of an aristocrat, but also a respected woman who had acquired her highness as a relative. Then she would have lived comfortably in high society, although if she had power, she would not have to rely on the young man. Why did he leave her only the title of countess? This does not give the privileges that were before. Has she really lost her power and become a fading flower of high society, so that some canaille considers her just a guest in this house? If the wounds become inflamed and the fever increases, the girl will definitely die, and the woman will simply pretend that she knew nothing about it. No one cares about her anyway, even her family and husband. She should take up the idea of engaging with the princess again. Suddenly, a young man appeared, who usually did not come at such an hour, and the countess asked what brought him. Let him come in and sit down. Perhaps he would like something to drink. She will order the servants to serve tea. The duke only said that he had heard strange rumors. Josephine immediately began to panic, wondering if he really came because of that girl. That's why he showed up so late. Maybe she was that important to him. But the guy continued that he heard that she had stated that he would attend the banquet in honor of the second princess's birthday. The countess immediately calmed down. Why was she worried at all? Of course. He wouldn't ask her about that girl. After which she replied that Lillian was so worried about this that she couldn't help but promise her that the guy would keep her company. But she thought to herself that everything had come together well. Such meetings would definitely help arrange a marriage. But suddenly, the young man asked who gave her the right to interfere in his affairs. The woman began to mumble that the princess simply said that she had not seen him for a long time, so she had to suggest it. The young man replied that, in that case, let him accompany her. She had no right to more. Meanwhile, our heroine began to come to her senses. Her whole body was simply burning, and she was terribly thirsty. How long had she been unconscious? Looking at her legs, she saw that there was simply no living space left on them. What should she do? The wound cannot be left in this state. It must be disinfected before it becomes infected. In the worst case, the nerve may be damaged. Did the Countess really have such a plan? To leave her without medicine and a doctor? People are very fragile creatures. Although it is not surprising, everyone here initially disregarded human lives. To their great regret, the girl is able to cure herself. Having found a bottle of wine, Canna hoped that it would be enough to disinfect the wound. It would hurt terribly, but she would endure it. Suddenly, she noticed a tree that grew right in front of her room. In a past life, it was used in medicine. Each part is rich in healing properties. It also helps to reduce pain and relieve inflammation. But it usually grows only on the eastern continent. It's strange that it ended up next to her bedroom. Then she dug into Ju's memories and realized that it was the Countess's order. Such trees only grow in the east, but now they are in her garden. Many will envy the lady. Don't forget to put in the magic stones. Without them, the trees won't survive in the local climate. Our heroine realized that she was very lucky and immediately picked some leaves. Then she did everything she could, carried out disinfection, applied leaves, and wrapped her legs with cloth. She is very lucky. Even though there are no painkillers or antibiotics here, in her past life, she would not have had to suffer like this. If she had been there, she would have immediately reported everything that was happening to the police. They would have called an ambulance and taken her to the hospital. They would have given first aid and applied bandages, and her family would have sat with her, worrying about her health. Mom would say that tears won't help grief. They will only make it weaker. Addis, you can't cry. But how much you want to go back? But you'll have to get used to life here. Meanwhile, the servant reported to the Duke about everything that had happened during the day. The girl's wounds were quite serious, so it was dangerous to leave everything as it was. Alistair decides such matters. Josephine's assumptions turned out to be correct. Sylvian did not care about his wife's condition, even if she died. But for Canna, it was like a death sentence. After some time, Mary thought that for 10 days now, only empty plates had been taken out from behind her room, and she wished she would kick the bucket already. Then she went to the Countess and said that it seemed she was still alive, but with her wounds, it was only a matter of time. The woman asked to be informed as soon as there was good news. The maid thought to herself, "What an empty-headed girl. Why did she even touch her? She only added problems to herself. It was not worth getting involved with her. Now she will know not to contradict my lady's favorite servant." Suddenly, a girl ran up to her and said, out of breath, that she had news about Lady Canna. The woman immediately became happy and asked if she had finally died. From behind, our heroine's voice was heard, saying that she didn't want to disappoint her, but she was still alive. Mary couldn't believe her eyes. Was she imagining it? The girl was beaten half to death. How was that possible? Why did she look more alive than anyone else? Addis continued that she really wanted her to die as much as the mistress of this mansion did. Canna cannot forgive such insolence. Let them bring her the rods. After some time, the Countess went crazy, threw everything around and screamed, "How is this possible? Who brought her the medicine?" The man replied that no one had done this. He had specifically checked the supplies, but everything was in place. Josephine screamed why she looked like nothing had happened, and even dared to do this to Mary. The maid's legs were all covered in blood, and she was lying unconscious in the middle of the corridor. Immediately after this, Alistair went to see the girl, who said that she hadn't visited her for a long time. The woman noted to herself that Kani looked much better than she thought, after which she asked if the girl had stolen the medicine from the pharmacist. Our heroine asked how she could have taken them if she hadn't gone anywhere. She herself knows what state Addis was in recently. I thought to myself that although I did have to borrow a couple of plants from the garden, after which she asked whether the Countess was not happy that she had finally recovered. The girl seemed to be angered by this, but the woman replied that it was not so. It was just worth telling her about it right away. In general, Josephine came here for another reason, or rather because of the headmaid. How dared Canna punish her without the Countess's permission? The girl answered because the maid wished her death, and she was very pleased with this possible development of events. Alistair thought to herself, how could she be so stupid? Why did she have to say it out loud? No one ever cared about Addis, so it would only make things easier if she died. But let's not forget her title. If Mary intended to kill her, then that is a good enough reason. The girl said that since they had cleared everything up, her punishment should not cause any problems now. The woman objected. How could she? The maid had been serving faithfully in this mansion for many years. Our heroine replied that she could not be near someone who wanted her dead. If the Countess did not agree to kick her out, then she would leave herself. Josephine didn't understand what the catch was, why she was talking about it so confidently. Did she have anywhere to go? Who would even want to take her in? Therefore, I answered that, let him do whatever he wants. If he wants to leave so much, then please do so. Our heroine calmly replied that, okay then, she would leave this place tomorrow morning. Now Canna has achieved what she wanted, although the fact of expulsion in this situation is rather unfair. Now she needs to talk to the Duke, but she is sure that he will gladly accept her offer, given Ju's antics. She simply must take this opportunity to end everything once and for all. After some time, the girl knocked on his door and asked if she could come in. Hearing the answer that Lady Canna could come in, Addis was indignant to herself, which of course, she assumed that his attitude towards her was the worst possible. But even he did not consider her a duchess. Entering his bedroom, our heroine saw a young man in just a robe who asked what she wanted to tell him. The girl thought to herself that he scared her. It seemed like it wasn't the first time she'd seen his face, but she still couldn't get used to it. No matter how good he looks, behind this mask hides a bad person. A cold-blooded man, even with an unusual appearance. Even if something happens to his wife, he will not bat an eyelid. Shouldn't someone like him wish her death? After which she said she didn't know if he heard, although she was sure he did. So Countess Elister was going to kill her. The guy objected that she did not have enough strength to kill someone with rods. Canna realized that he already knew everything. Did it really not bother him at all? She then stated that he knew that she was seriously injured, but did absolutely nothing. The Duke asked why he should worry about it at all. Addis replied because she is his wife. She was almost killed by her own mother-in-law. He will continue to pretend that he did not know anything or something. The boy asked, so what? She was still alive anyway, so what's the problem? The girl thought to herself that this face had appeared countless times in Ju's memories. Beautiful eye shape, raised corners of the lips, a pleasant voice, and a look full of disgust. He is such a person, even if she loses consciousness or starts bleeding, Sylvian will not even look in her direction. Canna asked why he married her, even though their marriage was one of convenience. But that doesn't change the essence. He agreed to take her as his wife, so why doesn't he respect her at all? Sometime later, when our heroine came to her house, the knight reported that Duke Addis had said not to let her in if she came. The girl thought to herself that she knew it. Everything turned out worse than she thought. The father was afraid that his daughter might return. Addis, of course, knew that she would not be welcome, but it seems that he has decided to abandon her forever. Now it is clear why Ju Hava never met him. But now it doesn't matter anymore, and she hasn't considered him her father for a long time, but she needs to meet him in order to get a divorce. I wonder if she had a different color hair, would it change anything? Black is a symbol of misfortune and disaster. To understand why everyone thinks so, we need to go back to the distant past. Long ago, when the southern continent was called the continent of magic, people took a peaceful and happy life for granted. But one day, out of nowhere, a black fog appeared. Whatever it touched immediately died. Then the world was consumed by fear and horror. In an instant, everything turned black, and then people had to leave their homeland in order to survive. So they settled on the western continent. This became the so-called beginning of modern civilization, which lasted about 1,000 years. But this territory was not completely safe either, although in smaller quantities. But there was also a black fog there. Then he gave birth to inexplicable things, mysterious clots, objects, and otherworldly beings. Although they were not originally in this world, these predators were uncontrollable. As soon as a person touched the black fog, he immediately caught an infection and lost his mind. Thus people turned into monsters and lived infected by the fact that they devoured other people. Their eyes and hair turned black. Like the fog itself, naturally, a person with such a color would be considered a monster, although this is the most common hair color where she lived before. Therefore, wherever she went or whomever she met, she was always looked at with disgust. And who would listen to such a person? A little earlier, she told the Duke that even though she had married him, she had never expected such an attitude towards herself. It was normal then, but not now. Even if it was a marriage of convenience, the girl could not live like this anymore. Did he hear that the Countess had thrown her out? The guy asked what happened. Canna said that she would leave this place and return to her parents' house. The young man was surprised that she said that she would leave the place where he lived, after which he said that he could do whatever he wanted. When she added that she was going to file for divorce as soon as she received her father's permission, the young man replied that he was looking forward to it. Addis got angry and kicked the pebble, thinking to herself that it didn't look like he believed her. He probably thought that the girl was trying to get his attention in this way. Although, given the recent events, he definitely didn't believe her, but let him wait a little longer, and they will definitely get divorced. First, she needs to get to her father for a conversation. But how can she do this? Perhaps try to climb over the fence, grab the Duke, and beg him. Suddenly, she heard a carriage approaching. The coachman announced that the young gentleman had returned and that the gates should be opened immediately. It turned out that it was her younger brother who arrived, who is the second son, namely Cullen Addis. There was a young lady sitting in the carriage who, for some reason, was hiding her face. The young man said what an unexpected meeting it was, what brought her to their house. A little earlier, he told Lucy to get a good rest while the guy looked for another doctor. The girl quietly objected that they had already said that no one could help her. The baby is the youngest daughter of the Addis family. She is 7 years old. The little one suffers from a terrible disease. No one understood what was wrong with her, so they preferred to simply shy away from her, as if she were a leper. The doctors just shook their heads and said that medicine was powerless, so it was better to go to church. The guy thought to himself that he already had a lot to do, so he said that if she didn't have any urgent business with him, then she should return to the Valentino estate. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, which slightly lifted the veil from the girl's face. The young man immediately told our heroine not to dare tell anyone about what she saw if she valued her life. But Canna started asking how the treatment was going, what the doctor was saying, how long she had been in this condition, whether they had started treating her in a timely manner. The girl can help with Lucy's treatment if they let her stay here for a while. Cullen exclaimed how she was going to do what even the best doctors on the continent had failed to do. What could she possibly know about this? Is this some kind of joke for her? Addis told him to calm down first. Doesn't he want to cure his sister? She said she could help. The young man was confused and thought to himself that it didn't look like he was trying to deceive him. Maybe he really did know how to heal the little girl. It was necessary to use this small chance if she could get better, so he told her to follow him. On the way, the girl asked why it was so quiet, where everyone else was. The guy answered that he was at a banquet in the imperial palace. Our heroine said that it was clear. Let her ask for them to bring her needles for acupuncture. Without them, she will not be able to help. It is very important that they are of the right size and diameter, and let her also convey that they must be made of the highest quality manna stone. The young man didn't trust all this. How could it help? It seemed he was too hasty with this decision. But he muttered out loud that it was still better than going somewhere to a temple. The temple is the domain of the divine spirit, who protects the Western continent from evil with the help of the powers of the world tree. A place to which the laws of the empire do not apply is sacred and very dangerous. No one has the right to enter or leave it at will. There are also no rules of etiquette there, and everything that happens is devoid of common sense, so I don't want to send my younger sister there. Cullen asked if she had at least studied medicine. Our heroine replied that he knew that she was interested in alchemy. During her training, it turned out that she was closely connected with medicine, and then Canna learned healing techniques. But first, the girl still needs to assess the baby's condition. The young man thought to himself that although he did not believe a single word she said, with her straight posture and confident speech, without hesitation, she was not at all the same as before. Over the past 7 years, my older sister has become a different person. Addis came up to the bed, said hello, and told her not to be afraid, since it wouldn't hurt her, and if she could get out from under the blanket. Let her not worry, since the girl knows about her illness. If she is prescribed the right treatment and medicine, then everything will be fine. The little one objected that the doctors said that nothing can be done. Canna replied that she had met many people with this disease, but she had healed them, so she could help her too. After thinking for a while, the little girl gradually pulled the blanket off herself. Cullen thought to himself that people were always horrified by her face. He couldn't even imagine how hard it was for her at such moments. Let Valentino just try to say something about it. But unexpectedly, our heroine did not react in any way, only asked her to close and open her eyes. Then she told me to blink only my right eye and then my left, while saying that she was smart. The young man thought to himself that she was not surprised at all. He did not expect such a calm reaction from her, as if this was not a terrible disease at all. Kana asked if she had a fever or cough before these symptoms appeared. The guy remembered that on that day she fell from a boat into a pond and then caught a cold, but Lucy quickly recovered and was no longer sick. Our heroine replied that she didn't think so, then began asking the little girl if she had suffered from pain or noise in her ears after that incident. When the young man muttered that she had said nothing of the sort, the girl said that she had not asked him. Cullen thought to himself that if even he didn't know about it, then certainly not others. The little one couldn't hide something from him. But suddenly, the little girl answered that yes, this is exactly what happens all the time. Addis replied that she thought so. Fortunately, it would not be difficult to cure her if she had everything she needed. But first, she needed to find that book. The young man asked how she found out about the pain in her ears. He didn't think that the little girl could hide anything from him. Was it really because she didn't believe his words? The girl replied that it wasn't only because of that. She simply thought that the girl wasn't telling him everything. Kana immediately began to remember how he had told her as a child to bring him the book he had dropped in the garden, to let him move, since it was of no use at all. Let her not dare to talk to him anymore, because she is disgusting. But she said out loud that she didn't even know. But if she were in her place, she would have done the same. He said that they had been to many doctors, but Lucy never told them about her pain. Most likely, the little girl was afraid of the reaction of those around her. The young man replied that this could not be, since he was making every effort to make her feel comfortable in the mansion. The girl thought to herself that anyone who had not known this horror since early childhood would never understand their feelings. So she asked him if he understood that there were other people living in this house. The little girl was an ordinary daughter of a maid, who was born right after her wedding. It doesn't matter what the young man thinks about her, because not everyone in this place thinks the same way. Mother, sister, younger brother, didn't he think that they might have a different opinion? Addis thought that it seemed like he had nothing to say, but still wondered why he became like this. She would never have thought that this guy would care so much about his stepsister. With her, everything was different. When our heroine coughed, he said that if she was sick, she should sit in her room. Since no one wants to see a sick person wandering around the mansion, you don't want to be seen. The guy always treated her like trash, and now he decided to play the caring brother. Although, thanks to him, she has a place to stay, he is still the same idiot. After which she said that she needs to open the library, since she needs to find something there. The baby had a fever and a cough, and now also has ear pain. These are typical signs of a viral infection, which is the cause of facial paralysis. The main problem remains with medicinal herbs, since our heroine does not know where to get them. But, fortunately, the plants here are the same as in the country where she lived. They are ideal for Eastern medicine. The baby is very lucky that the disease did not affect the brain, in which case she would not have coped without instruments. She would have had to do a blood test or an MRI, but her illness can be easily cured. The older brother continued to look at her with distrust, so she realized that it would be difficult for him to accept her help. Cullen asked if she really believed that medical books from the East could be of any help. The Eastern continent was accidentally discovered by one navigator less than 10 years ago. There is very little information about it. There are only records of the use of herbs. For example, it is known that tea from the roots of peonies growing there helps with anemia. People began adding herbs to tea only because of fashion, but if the proportions are wrong, many of them have no effect, so no one knew that they could be used in medicine. Or rather, they simply didn't have anyone who understood Eastern medicine. After which she said that this book would be useful to her. There was no need to worry and just follow her instructions. On the leaflet she wrote that the following were needed: astragal, diagyl, red peonies, stinging root, safflower. Kana asked if it would be difficult to get them, but the young man replied that no, there shouldn't be any problems. But he thought to himself that he had never heard of such herbs. Of course, the guy doesn't trust her, but it seems she knows what she's doing, and the girl guessed about the symptoms that he didn't even know about. Our heroine asked to be informed when everything is ready, and she has to go to her laboratory, whether it even exists anymore. When the young man replied that, yes, Addis was surprised that they didn't even try to remake it. Cullen said that his father locked it so that no one could enter, while giving instructions to find everything on the list. Entering her room, Kanna was surprised that nothing had changed since the day Juva came in before the wedding. It was as if time simply stood still. The girl thought that Alexander would get rid of her immediately. But why did she remain untouched? As if he wanted to preserve the memories of the owner of this room, so that she could return here at any moment. But this cannot be. Most likely there is some kind of mistake. Why should the Duke remember her? He hates her with all his heart. It's better to go check the underground laboratory. It turned out that nothing had changed there either. The only thing that made her happy after her return was the opportunity to practice alchemy again. There were a lot of dusty books around. How did they live here without her? Only they were with her, throughout her childhood in this huge mansion. Suddenly, our heroine heard the doors to the room begin to open. It was a painfully familiar feeling that struck her like lightning, so it was not Cullen or the servants who burst in, but a real monster. The young man who looked in stated that the trash had really returned. A little earlier, he was met by a butler, who said that he had returned early. The guy replied that he was bored at the banquet. The repertoire had not changed for several years. Was Cullen even at home, since he had not seen him? The man replied that in fact Duchess Valentino had arrived at the estate. It seemed she had come to help Lucy, and now his brother had gone to get everything necessary for treatment. The young man angrily pushed the screen and hissed, "What kind of nonsense is this? What kind of treatment, for the sake of which he allowed this trash to enter their house, where she is now?" Upon seeing our heroine, the young gentleman noted that her hair remained the same disgusting black color. For her, it was a familiar nickname and insult. She remembers very well what would follow these words. Since he also lives here, it was logical that sooner or later, they would cross paths. But the girl simply didn't think that it would happen so soon. "My feet feel rooted to the ground, and my fingertips are trembling. My brother used to tell me when I was a kid, why doesn't she just die? It would be a great gift for them. Let her not even think about walking with her head raised. Let her just try to look him in the eyes, and he will immediately kill her." The girl came up to him and said that she was glad that they met, and these feelings were sincere. She missed him very much. She thought to herself that Orsini simply did not know what an oath she had given herself, that if she met him again, she would definitely make him suffer, and also make sure that he got what he deserved. The young man asked what was going on with her. Had she completely lost her mind, or had she fallen down the stairs since her father had forbidden her to come here? Had she decided to pretend to be a doctor or what? Then the young man added that if this scum had forgotten her place, then it was time to remind her again. Our heroine looked him confidently in the eyes and hissed that he was too close, let him move away. Orsini was very surprised by her behavior. She had never been like this before. It was simply impossible. Kanna continued to do her business, and said that quite a bit of time had passed. Didn't he miss her? The guy shouted at her to stop talking nonsense and get out of this house. The smell of garbage made him sick. Addis replied that didn't Callan tell him that she would stay here for a while to help her sister. The young man thought to himself that she had really gone completely crazy and was not afraid. He needed to pull himself together. After all, he had come to throw her out of here. So why was she continuing to listen to all this nonsense? After which he swung his arm to strike, and declared that she would now want to leave here herself. But our heroine suddenly splashed some liquid on him. The young man's whole body immediately began to burn. He asked what it was. Kanna answered that it was a way to teach her bad brother a lesson. She created this potion as a child. It burns through flesh without causing bleeding. A very special remedy. The pain will not go away until you use the neutralizer, and a scar will remain. If he apologizes to her right now, she will give him a neutralizer. He doesn't want to spend his whole life with this pain. Orsini was taken aback by such behavior and muttered that she was simply abnormal. Meanwhile, in the banquet hall of the imperial palace, the Duke was informed that an urgent letter had arrived from the estate. From it, Alexander learned that his illegitimate daughter, Kanna Addis, is back. Looking at his brother, who was lying unconscious, Cullen asked what was going on here. The girl replied that he tried to attack her, so he had to use force. She used her potion. It and the neutralizer for it were created by her at the age of 14. She would have given it to him after an apology, but he preferred to remain silent. After which she asked if he had prepared the needles and herbs. The young man replied that yes, they would be delivered around midnight. When Kana said to let them know when they arrived, the brother replied that it was fine and would order the servants to carry Orsini away from here. On the way, the guy thought about how his brother was one of the best swordsmen in the empire, who could even split a stone if he wanted to, but even he lost consciousness from a potion made by a 14-year-old girl. It's just incredible. If she had such talent, why did she endure it all this time? Although she is no longer that little girl, her look has become more confident. Does this mean that she is ready to fight for her honor? After some time, the needles that Addis had requested were delivered. Having carefully examined the inventory, the girl noted to herself that this was simply excellent work. Acupuncture helps to disperse thick blood in the body. These needles are made of high-grade healing magic stones. The herbs were also ready, but only one detail remained, after which she handed Cullen the paper and told him to put his seal. The young man asked if she really didn't trust him that much. Our heroine replied that she just wanted to be sure that everything they talked about was written down there. The young man muttered that he didn't even know how to react to this, but she had to cure the girl at any cost. Kana replied that of course she would do everything she could, and now it was time to start the treatment. Then she told the baby to gather her hair so that the back of her head was visible, and then turn over onto her stomach. Now she would begin, and let the baby relax. Suddenly, her brother grabbed her hand and told her to stop. What was she even doing? Was she crazy? Why was she going to pierce her tender skin with this needle? Our heroine asked how he dared to stop her, and the guy exclaimed, "What kind of treatment is this?" The girl asked if she should stop, if he was sure about it, if he wanted her to stop. Cullen replied dejectedly that he had simply never seen such treatment before. Addis replied that she had learned this method while studying alchemy, and he believed and trusted her with the treatment, didn't he? If her brother doesn't trust her that much, then it's better to end it there. Let him choose. The more he hesitates, the less chances of success. The young man thought to himself that she had always been a disgrace to their family. Even with the title of Duchess, she had no power in high society. Wasn't she always downtrodden? Maybe I just didn't know her. Was she really so confident in her abilities? Who treats with needles anyway? This is absurd. But the confidence with which she speaks gives him hope, after which he replied that he trusts her. Let her continue. Kana replied that it was great, but he shouldn't bother her anymore. But she thought to herself that he was driving her crazy. Now the girl began to be afraid. In this state, it would be more difficult for her to endure the process. Then she turned to the little girl and said that she would soon get better, if only she would believe her. The baby replied that no one had ever told her that she would be able to recover, so she was very happy and had hopes for it. Our heroine noted to herself that she was simply a cutie and a very quick learner, after which she again told her to lie on her stomach and remove the hair from the back of her head. After the session was over, Lucy exclaimed that she felt much better. Cullen muttered that it seemed that the muscles of her lips had become more relaxed. Was this treatment really that effective? Kana asked if he believed her now, but she thought to herself that she had not expected such a quick effect. After all, it was much easier to heal with magic stones, and her soul felt lighter. Then she added that the treatment would take a few more days, and she needed to drink the medicine from the package every day. After which she was about to leave, saying that the procedures were over for today, so she was going to sleep. But suddenly the young man called out to her. But the young man changed his mind and did not say what he wanted, but simply added that it was okay, let him rest. On the way, Addis thought that it was obvious that he had many questions for her, but he could understand, after all. She was not the same as she was 7 years ago, but she doesn't care at all. Neither what he wanted to say, nor this family, nor anything in this world. Maybe in childhood she wanted to be a member of this dynasty, but now she doesn't need it. These people will never stop hating her, so there is absolutely no desire to even try to get along with them. She knows them too well. After some time, she woke up from a blow to the face and a shrill scream from a woman who ordered her to get up immediately. Our heroine muttered how much longer they would wake her up like this. It was Kana's stepmother and the mistress of the Addis family. She cried out what the girl had done to Orsini. Chloe swung again and screamed. How could she even have the courage to do such a thing? Our heroine noted to herself that she still cared about her son, after which she asked why not talk first. Why hit him right away? The woman was again indignant that she was even allowing herself to do this, and was about to strike. Suddenly, a young man's voice was heard saying that it was enough what was happening here at all. Mother said that it was she who should ask why Kanna returned home. She was kicked out, and even harmed Orsini. Our heroine objected that no one had kicked her out. In fact, she had simply gotten married and left. As Chloe grew more and more angry, the young man informed her that it was he who transferred her here. So please let her be polite to his guest. The woman muttered that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Let him forgive her. But she would be lying if she said that she was glad to see her. Kanna replied that it was mutual. The owner of the house added that her son is now suffering from pain, and only she has a neutralizer. So let her stop torturing him and help. The girl replied that she would first like to hear an apology for what happened earlier. Chloe found it very difficult to do this, but she said that she apologized because she was wrong, and it wouldn't happen again. Addis was surprised that it turned out to be so simple. Perhaps it's all about experience. She's much smarter than Orsini. Then she handed over a bottle and said that a few drops were enough for the wound to heal. She thought to herself that, of course, she would like to hear an apology from the young man himself, but now it doesn't matter, because he doesn't represent any value to her. The woman asked if it wouldn't be better for her to give it to him herself, since after all, the creator knows best what and how. Kanna was slightly amused that she didn't want to use something she knew nothing about, then said that, okay, let them take her to him. Upon seeing her, the young man again began to call her all sorts of obscene words. The girl immediately said that one more word, and this bottle would accidentally slip out of her hand. Now let him shut his mouth and not twitch. She promises to do everything quickly. Our heroine asked if he trusted her at all, if he was sure that this remedy would not corrode his skin and reach his heart. The woman was indignant that she was saying such a thing. Kanna thought to herself that she just wanted him to be careful in the future. She said out loud that she was joking. How could such a talented swordsman be afraid of something like that? After which, she opened the bottle with the neutralizer and began to pour it directly onto the wound. Chloe was shocked that she instantly started to drag. Did Addis really create it with alchemy? Wasn't it just a useless exercise? The girl got up and said that since he felt better, she was going back to bed. She thought to herself, what do you waste your time on instead of sleeping? She needs to rest. Let them just try to wake her up again. At one point, it was as if her breath was caught. She instinctively felt someone's presence. It turned out to be her father, Alexander. But why is the man here at all? Suddenly, he put his hand on her face and whispered her full name. Kanna didn't understand what was happening. He had never touched her before. What had changed? Plus, he called her by her last name, Addis, not Valentino. Then her father added, welcome back. The girl muttered that they hadn't seen their father for a long time, but she realized to herself that she didn't want to call him that this was happening to her. He could kick her out of the estate at any moment, after which she began to explain how she ended up here. The woman couldn't understand what this was all about. Didn't he forbid her to come back? Why didn't he throw her out and yell at her? Addis was surprised that he was listening to her so attentively, but she finished her explanation by saying that she wanted to help the girl, so please don't let him blame Cullen for this. When the pause dragged on, our heroine began to think to herself that he should say at least something already if he was going to scold her. Then he needed to do it quickly. But suddenly, the father replied that, okay, let him do what he thought was right. Not only the girl, but also the random witnesses of the conversation were taken aback by these words. The next day, after the Duke's shocking words, Isabel, who was Cullen's twin sister, was indignant about what had happened while she was away, and whether Kanna had returned. 7 years ago, when her sister got married, the girl thought that they would never meet again. Isabel heard that her husband's family treated her terribly, and she was very happy about it. It would be better not to have a sister at all than such a sister. However, now Mother reported that Cullen signed a contract with Kanna. She will help Lucy in exchange for living here. The girl was shocked. How could this be understood at all? She was torn apart from within by mixed feelings, after which she flew to her brother and exclaimed that she knew everything, what he was thinking. How could she possibly help the girl? The young man calmly replied that after her procedures, the baby felt much better. The girl grabbed her head. Does he really believe this dirty girl? She doesn't know anything about medicine. Maybe she can do it. But is that enough to allow him to stay here? The young man immediately flared up. What does it mean? Enough. Does she really think that her sister's illness is not a very weighty reason? The girl thought to herself that she was the daughter of a simple maid. Who cares about her condition anyway? It was strange that her brother was so worried about it. After which she stated that she was his twin sister. Why does he care about Lucy more than about her? The guy didn't respond to this, but simply hissed at her to get out of there immediately. Isabel was taken aback by the fact that he had just kicked her out. What had she done wrong at all? Then she ran to Orsini and said that this trash had returned to the estate again. Suddenly, Canna would stay here forever, and Cullen didn't even want to listen to her. The young man did not react to her words at all, so she did not understand who she could complain to in this house. She was afraid to go to her father's office. She has been afraid of him since childhood, although he never scolded or punished her. People who don't know him find him attractive. He is excellent in their eyes, and he also has power. Many envy her for having such a father. But all this is just a beautiful shell. It is enough to just look into his eyes, because the man looks at her, and the whole family, as at inanimate objects. Therefore, her words will not change anything at all. But she does not want to see Canna in this house. What should she do? After which she caught up with our heroine, smiled sweetly, and asked how she was doing, since they hadn't seen each other for so long. She thought to herself that she was a dirty girl, and that she couldn't possibly catch this blackness from her. When Addis asked how she was doing, Isabel was surprised that this girl didn't even stutter around her. After which she asked if it was true that her sister was treating the baby. Canna answered that everything was so. Isabel exclaimed that it was simply incredible. Even the doctors couldn't help. How does she do it? Let her tell. But suddenly, Addis replied that, no, she was not going to explain anything to her, and in general, stop pretending that they were close. Cullen's twin sister thought that she was crazy before. Being treated well brought her joy. And why did she tell her not to pretend? There are simply no words. And what if I can't kick her out? I don't even want to think about it. Canna is just an insect. It's not for nothing that she hates it. It's nothing but trouble. After her appearance, terrible rumors began to spread about their family, all because of the color of her hair and eyes, which represents bad luck and resembles black fog. The girl began to be acquainted with those madmen who worshipped the black fog. Because of this, they said that the Duke was in collusion with the black followers, and people believed that Canna was born from Alexander's relationship with one of them. Rumors spread very quickly. They even started talking about stripping him of his title. The only thing that helped him was the appearance of monsters in the capital, which he quickly dealt with. Only the Addis and Valentino families can resist the black fog. The father could not have a child with a black follower. However, with age, the sisters' hair and eyes did not change their color. Ominous, disgusting, dirty. How do all the other people see her? She must be like an insect to them. So why should she treat her well? It is necessary to kick her out of this house. The only thing that gets in the way is the contract that Cullen signed with her. What a fool he is. Was it really necessary to do that? Then something dawned on the girl. What if she could benefit from this? Brother said that Canna will stay here and treat the baby, which means that something can be done. And that's exactly what she does. Canna read Ju's diary. Soye understood that she was an outcast even in her own family. There was no place for her in the whole country. She was called trash. No one had warm feelings for her. All the records were filled with pain. Now she had to go back to this. A society striving for equality, warm and family relationships. This was life in the body in which she grew up. And Ju herself, Va, found herself in a place where no one was happy to see her. The 17-year-old girl was all alone in this big world. Although some of her thoughtless actions are annoying, you can't blame her. She was able to live 12 years in the shadows because our heroine lived like that before. It's not their fault, but the fault of those who oppressed them. These people are disgusting. I wish I could leave this place as soon as possible. Fortunately, the baby is getting better, so there's not much left. Suddenly, servants appeared and said that the lady must go with them, as this was the order of the mistress. When they started grabbing her hands, the girl did not understand what was happening. Why so suddenly? Until she was told that the little girl was now in a simply terrible condition. In the baby's room, the main actresses were crying theatrically, wondering what they should do now, since the baby had gotten worse again. When she asked Cullen to move away so that Lucy could be examined, the guy pushed her away and ordered her not to come closer. She shouldn't be trusted with the treatment. Our heroine calmly replied that she needed to understand what was happening to her. The young man hissed that it was all her fault. She had never felt so bad before, so he no longer trusted Kana. The girl asked if now was the right time for this. They could continue to cry and throw tantrums. They wanted to blame her and kick her out, so great. But now, Addis has no time to care about their feelings. His sister is sick, so there is no need to disturb her. Then she approached the girl and noted that she really did feel worse. But after the second procedure in the morning, she was fine. And now she has weak breathing, convulsions. These symptoms have nothing to do with facial paralysis. This is not a new disease. The disease develops gradually, as if you are immersed deeper and deeper in water. It cannot manifest itself so quickly and without any symptoms. There is only one explanation for this. After which she turned to the girl's personal maid, who was also crying dramatically, and asked what Lucy had eaten today. Let her tell her everything, down to the last detail. Isabel got scared and immediately exclaimed that enough was enough. This was already going beyond all bounds. Didn't she feel sorry for the baby? She had already brought her to this state. Canna specifically used Lucy to return to her family, and she had no talent for medicine. She didn't think that the girl would go so far. Our heroine ignored this speech and asked the maid again how long she would remain silent. Let her name everything that the girl ate today. She was fine until this morning. She can only think of one way she could have gotten so sick in just a couple of hours. If she ate anything, it certainly wasn't from the meal plan Kane had put together. Isabel began to panic even more and immediately screamed for her to stop immediately. At the same time, I was thinking how it could have come to this. I couldn't figure out this garbage. I need to put an end to it. Then she exclaimed, "How much can you use the girl? She doesn't care that she wants to stay in the estate, but pretending to be a doctor and doing whatever she wants with the baby is too much." I thought to myself that if I ate this remedy with food, my stomach would hurt for several days, with symptoms including high temperature, stomach pain, and diarrhea. After which, she abruptly opened the doors and ordered the knights to immediately seize Kana and lock her in the room. When there was no reaction, the girl screamed, "Why are they standing there? Didn't they hear what she just said?" Mother said that they should do as Isabel says. It seems that Kana is tired. It is better for her to rest in her room. Our heroine was indignant. Are they even in their right minds? Now is not the time for this. This child needs help. The girl did not understand why they were hesitating. Was it really all because of her position? After which she ordered them to move. Let them take her out by force or by anything. As they threw her over their shoulders, the girl thought to herself that they were treating her like cattle. Cullen suddenly intervened and ordered them to stop. What were they doing anyway? Then he tore his sister out of their arms. Canna did not understand why he decided to do this, after which she asked for forgiveness for the knight's behavior and said that they were already leaving from here. Isabel was outraged at what he was doing, since Lucy was in such a terrible state because of her. The guy ordered the girl to shut her mouth. How dare she order the guards to grab her sister? What was she even thinking about? The girl didn't understand why he was angry, why he was protecting Canna and not her. When did the guy even manage to get so close to this girl? It's not funny anymore. A real traitor. After which she immediately ran to complain to her mother and ask if Chloe heard what her brother said. Why should she listen to all this? Because she was simply worried about the baby. The woman thought to herself that, although it was annoying that he was defending Valentino, it was better not to interfere with the evil Cullen. So she said it was too late and she was tired, so she needed to rest. Her daughter tried to stop her, but nothing worked. The young man ordered her to leave too, although the girl wanted to stay, feigning concern. Our heroine noted to herself that she was behaving too suspiciously. Could it really have been Isabel who did this? It's only a matter of time before the whole truth comes out, so she said, "It's okay, let it stay." What is more important? Let the maid finally tell what the girl ate today. Isabel mentally addressed her and asked her to stop. She wasn't going to tell the whole truth. But the young man intervened and told the maid not to worry, just let her tell them everything. The girl reported that the food was prepared according to her recommendations. She did not eat any other snacks. She only drank tea after eating and said that it tasted strange, nothing more. Our heroine immediately asked to bring her that tea, and the assistant began to carry out the assigned task. After some time, the girl brought that very tea. Isabel mentally reassured herself that only a professional could detect this additive, so she needed to control herself. When our heroine asked if it was lavender or tea, the maid replied that it was, because the girl loved it very much. Kanna then emptied the entire contents onto the table and noted to herself that she had thought so. Isabel was indignant that this was not right. It was just regular tea with lavender leaves. She had never heard of lavender tea causing any problems, so it must be some kind of mistake. But Kanna replied that, no, something else had been added to the mixture. The girl immediately jumped up and exclaimed that this was too much. They would have immediately understood if there was something else there. But she thought to herself that she would hardly be able to determine what exactly. Let her try. She had no evidence anyway. Then she grabbed these herbs and told her brother to come and smell them, to see if he could smell anything other than lavender. The young man said thoughtfully that he really didn't feel anything except lavender. The maid picked up that, yes, nothing that would arouse suspicion. Isabel was immediately glad that everything had worked out and said that she thought it was time to stop. Didn't her sister think that doing this to the baby was too much? This is too serious a statement to ignore. She will have to tell her father to throw her out of here. Does she still not want to admit her mistake? Because she only pretended to know something? The girl would never have done that to Lucy. She didn't expect her sister to be like that. She was glad to herself that she had managed to do this. She would throw Kanna out of here once and for all. Suddenly, our heroine said that she needed to calm down a little, as she was too overexcited. Isabel was indignant. What was she even talking about? She no longer had a reason to stay here. Addis objected that she didn't think so. Fortunately, they still had some tea leaves left, so let the maid brew some tea from them and serve it to Isabel. As far as she remembers, her sister also likes this tea, so maybe after it she will feel better. Isabel ran away as soon as she was offered to drink this tea. The girl quickly declared that she was not in the mood, so she would better leave. The girl thought to herself that she was almost caught, but it was for the good of their family. She didn't think that the baby's condition would get so much worse. She will never forget her brother's look. So frightening. Let him never look at her like that again. Meanwhile, the young man stated that it was Isabel who did it. And what exactly was added to the tea leaves? Our heroine explained that the flowers of wolfberry, or rather its buds. The guy muttered that he didn't see any difference. Kanna explained that if they were dried, they would be similar in color and shape to tea leaves. They were not easy to tell apart because they had virtually no smell. But if you look closely, you can see that the lavender ones are twisted into a tight curl, and those that are a little darker are wolfberry flowers. The young man replied that he now saw the difference, after which he asked whether these flowers were poisonous. The girl replied that they are generally healing, but in large quantities they are harmful. Symptoms of poisoning include abdominal pain, fever, and diarrhea. The guy said that Lucy was very ill. She was vomiting, had convulsions and seizures. It even became difficult to breathe. This is not just a slight pain in the stomach, but if there was some other poison there. Our heroine asked him to calm down and said that she knew the reason for such a reaction. The flowers of wolfberry are incompatible with the medicine she recommended. The decoction that the girl is now taking contains licorice. When mixed, their toxicity increases. If used separately, everything will be fine. But if mixed, you get a poisonous mixture. This medicine can only be prescribed by a doctor. I am sure that whoever did all this did not expect such consequences. They probably just wanted to make the girl look sickly. If she couldn't cure the baby, she would break the terms of the contract, and then she would have to leave this house. The situation took a serious turn, and the culprit simply ran away. Naturally, Isabel will not receive any punishment for this. The young man asked if the girl could cure the baby. Kanna replied that there was no need to worry. She would get better as soon as she took one medicine, after which she told the maid to go to the pharmacy and ask her to prepare everything according to this list, and she would make the mixture herself. Suddenly, Cullen asked for forgiveness for what happened earlier. Our heroine was very surprised and asked why he suddenly decided to apologize. Let her not worry. She is not going to break the contract and will cure the baby, the guy called her sister, and said that it was not about that. Kanna interrupted him and asked why he called her sister. Let him call her that as before. It's more familiar. There's no need to behave like that with her, because the young man hates her. A month later, the little one ran up to our heroine and wished her good morning, who in turn asked if she had slept well. Addis was already close to curing the girl, but she had to face another opponent. Lucy's recovery is only one stage in achieving her goal. As soon as the little one is fully recovered, she will leave this disgusting place. The little girl said that she had a dream that she and her little sister were eating sandwiches and drinking milk in a meadow. The girl thought to herself that she always chatters incessantly. Let her get well soon. Why is it taking so long? After which she answered that it must be, and it was fun. The little one exclaimed that this was exactly how it was, then suggested that they go for a walk together. We can go to the city together, she, sister, and brother Cullen. Kanna's expression immediately changed. Suddenly, a young man appeared who said that there was no need to worry, since he would not go with them. It was a very awkward situation, so our heroine muttered that it wasn't about that. But to herself, she thought that it irritated her. What was wrong with him anyway? She stays in this house for only two reasons. Firstly, she needs to get permission for a divorce. Secondly, she doesn't want to launch her alchemy tools, and she's not interested in anything else. When she leaves this place, she won't even regret anything. After which, I decided that it was enough to think about it. It was necessary to finish it as soon as possible. Why does she need to ask permission to get a divorce? What disgusting rules. Then she asked the little girl for forgiveness and said that she still had things to do, so they would go another time. When the girl replied that everything was fine, Kanna thought to herself that she wasn't even being capricious. What a good girl. The guy kept hearing in his head her phrase about how he hates her, so let him call her the way he always does. It seems like she is no longer the same as she used to be. Why is he even thinking about all this? Does he even hate her? When he learned that she would be leaving after fulfilling the terms of the contract, he asked if she hadn't been kicked out of the Valentino family home. The girl replied that, indeed, she was ready to do anything for the sake of a divorce. When she left here, she would live alone, so let her tolerate her a little longer. Kanna promised that she would not appear in the estate again. I wonder if she hates him, if he has done anything to deserve her contempt. The question is also whether she did anything to deserve his contempt. Everyone around her says that her very existence is a sin, disgusting, a devil, a child of a black follower, and also a silly girl who smiles even if you hit her with a stone. Apparently she is hated, because they find reasons for this. Although this is all a lie, she was simply unlucky to be born with black hair, and no one has the right to judge her for something the girl cannot change. This young man committed terrible acts. It is only his fault, but the past cannot be changed. He realized everything too late. All this time she was only a half-sister, despised by the whole family. The young man had some strange feeling inside. What does he want? Maybe to correct all the mistakes. But is it too late? He knows that he shouldn't, but continues to worry about her. Our heroine thought to herself that the Duke should already be in your office. She has nothing to fear, so it is necessary to talk. She hasn't been here for so long. She's even a little nervous, because a month has passed since their last meeting. When the girl knocked and asked if she could come in, she received consent in response. In order to leave here, she needs her father's permission for divorce. Everything will be fine, so there is no need to worry. It cannot be avoided. Kanna noted to herself that in this place, it was as if time had stopped. The sound of a fountain pen scratching paper, the habit of wearing glasses while working, and even that magnificent face. Everything has not changed one bit. After which she said that, if it wouldn't be too much trouble for him, could he give her just a little time? Without looking up from his work, the man asked if he wasn't giving it to her right now. Addis was a little annoyed that he was picking on every word and said that she needed to tell him something. Then she asked, please, to give her permission for a divorce from Duke Valentino. The man immediately stopped writing, looked up at her, and asked what kind of scam. The girl exclaimed that the reason was in the Valentino family, but to herself, she thought that, for this, she had to sacrifice her shins. Then she continued that he must be acquainted with Countess Josephine Ellister. She is her mother-in-law, who ordered to greet her 3 times a day at a certain time. At the slightest delay, the woman first scolded her, and then taught her discipline with rods. The girl suffered terrible treatment over the last 7 years of marriage. Although Kanna was the daughter of the Addis family, she was despised even by the servants, and the maid poured water on her every morning to wake her up, sometimes even hitting her in the face. The more she remembered it, the angrier she became. But she had to restrain her emotions. She shouldn't expect compassion from such a cold-blooded person. It shouldn't look like an insult to her personally, but as an insult to Addis. Then, he will have to respond to the insult towards his dynasty, after which she continued that they disrespect their family, so she cannot live in such a place. She needs to divorce him as soon as possible. Let him allow this to be done as soon as possible. But she thought to herself that he would really refuse, even after hearing everything. To my great surprise, the father replied that, okay, he would order the butler to prepare all the documents. The girl was taken aback. Perhaps she misheard it, but in fact he told her to go and die there, so she asked if he was really giving her permission. The man asked in response whether he should change his mind, but our heroine exclaimed that no, let him allow her, after which she thanked him from the bottom of her heart, and thought to herself that presenting everything as an insult to the Addis family was an excellent idea. Then she added that she would like to leave the empire. It would be better to live in some coastal town in the kingdom of Alden. In fact, she was lying, but now she should please the duke. When the girl added that after the divorce she would immediately leave this house and never return, the man said that he had changed his mind and that she could not get a divorce. Our heroine did not understand in what sense he changed his mind, how it could happen so quickly, so she asked why. He had agreed at first. The man calmly replied that he was not obliged to explain the reason to her. It was his right. Kanna thought to herself that there was no point in trying to get his consent. He wouldn't give it anyway. But she wasn't going to give in so easily, even though it was humiliating. She needed permission. After which she muttered whether he wanted to tell her to continue living a life full of suffering in the Valentino estate. But Alexander replied that no, she did not need to go back there. She could stay here until other orders were given. The man then added that Kanna could not leave here without his permission, and moving to another kingdom was no exception. Our heroine thought to herself that now everything was clear. She shouldn't have talked about her plans. The father wouldn't wish happiness on his unloved child. He wanted to make her, on her knees, beg him for permission to divorce. She shouldn't have forgotten how much the man hated her, after which she said that she wanted him to know something. She was disappointed in him and hoped that he would change his mind in the future. When the girl ran out the door, she ran into Isabel, who was holding a letter in her hands. The girl began to mumble incoherently. What really? She went to her father in order to tell. Our heroine interrupted her and asked if she wanted to ask if she had told Alexander that it was she who poisoned Lucy. She noted to herself that she had turned so pale. Kanna heard that Cullern had scolded her so harshly that she had even started to cry. She already said out loud that it seems she realized her mistake, and now let her step aside. But suddenly, the so-called sister asked her to wait and poked her with some letter. This is an invitation from the imperial family. Did she know that the banquet for the second princess's birthday was about to take place, although Kanna still wouldn't go there? More precisely, she couldn't go, since even there she would have to hide so as not to attract unnecessary attention. The girl is just a dumbass who can't even respond to an invitation. She can't even stand next to people, so don't get cocky. Even if she does something, she will still remain the beloved daughter of the Addis family. Would anyone dare compare her with such trash? After which she added that there was no need to overestimate herself and went about her business. Our heroine thought to herself that the people in this house had not changed at all. They just wanted her not to attract attention to herself, but she was not going to indulge them anymore. As a child, the girl always hid in the basement to avoid being seen by her family. At first, it was scary to be there, but then she got used to it. Because she could calmly do alchemy, it was her talent. Extracting mana from magic stones requires innate abilities, so when she was able to repeat the experiment from the book at an early age, she was very happy. The little girl had hoped that she would be praised, but all she heard from her father was that she shouldn't dare show this to others, and if she did blab, he would destroy her laboratory. It was always exactly like this. No approval, no praise. He tried to hide her talent. This was to be expected, since this man does not want her happiness. Apparently, Kanna had been living the good life for too long. The success that comes with hard work, she was used to it. Therefore, she hoped that her father would at least explain the reason for the refusal. But this became her biggest mistake, because of which her plan had a bad outcome. Our heroine was beside herself with rage, so she called him obscene words and wished that he would go to hell. Her plan failed. She neither divorced nor left her family. If she knew a way, she would definitely return back to Ju's body fa. But he's not going to hide in the corners either. The Duke was never easy to deal with, so it was necessary to think through your plan well. At the moment, divorce is a priority. The main goal is a happy life. And also to open a hospital, although the circumstances have changed. But she worked hard for 10 years for this dream. But the probability of returning to the body of Juhava is extremely small. So she needs to arrange her current life. She must move towards her goal. Since things didn't work out with her father, it's time to come up with something better. And the time is just right. Birthday of the second Princess Lilian Iseberg. The place where all the aristocrats will gather. But she too is included in this number. Duchess Valentino of the Addis family. She has never been praised until now. A girl who is not considered a mistress, who is despised even by the servants. A terrible woman compared to her husband. Her gloomy appearance played a big role in this. Black hair that no one wants to touch, long bangs that cover her eyes. In order to succeed, she needs to solve this problem. Then she can stand proudly in front of everyone, remembering Isabel's words that she can't even stand next to people. Canna stated that they will see. Suddenly, Cullen came to her and said that he had heard that her father had not given permission for a divorce. The girl replied that if he wanted her to leave, he should tell the Duke about it. It was he who ordered her to stay here. Addis herself does not want to linger here, so let her pretend that she does not exist. The young man asked if she wanted to live in such a place. Why didn't she go up to the laboratory above? Why shouldn't she stay in the basement? Our heroine was interested in what he had planned this time. She had already been through a lot, so she can distinguish truth from lies. He was probably just curious. As a child, the little girl asked why he came to her in the laboratory, whether he wanted to talk to her about something or what. Unexpectedly, the boy replied that no, he just came to warn. Never go upstairs, because he doesn't want to see her face. After that, she was locked in the basement for 3 days. She would have definitely died there if it weren't for a passing servant who found her. And now he invites her to go upstairs. So she replied that it was not worth coming here for such trifles. Wouldn't it be better for them not to run into each other again? By the way, there is no need to call her sister either. Didn't they discuss this? Let him just address her as you, or maybe he wants to call her Duchess Valentino. The young man muttered that she didn't seem to be in the mood to talk to him now, but let her allow him to add something. The young man came here to propose to her to make a deal. The guy wants her to continue to take care of the baby's health, but he thought to himself that this is the only way to continue the conversation. Canna asked him if he still didn't believe she would recover. Cullen replied that he was telling me this. Lucy already had health problems. Because she is an illegitimate child of a servant, everyone looks down on her, and this puts a lot of pressure on the little one. Please let him prepare some medicine for her to strengthen her body and spirit. The girl is often sick, so let him examine her every day. The girl replied that the offer was good, but what would she get in return? The guy said that he would give her whatever she wanted. The girl replied that she wanted 2,000 gold every month, but she thought to herself that he would hardly like that, so she would agree to a smaller amount, but it would be better to name more at first. Although for aristocrats, this is probably not enough for a month. But suddenly, the guy answered that he agreed. What else does she want? Our heroine was confused and asked again if he had understood her correctly. She had said gold, not silver. The young man replied that it didn't matter. If he wanted silver ones too, he could have them too. When asked if she wanted anything else, Canna said a responsible and well-trained maid. Addis, of course, liked such generosity. But why, it is clear that he is ready to do anything for the baby, and values her very much. But why does Cullen treat her like that? After which she added that he should accompany her to the banquet on the occasion of her Highness's birthday. After some time, Canna thought about how she thought it would be a humiliating proposition for her brother to accompany the sister he hated so much. But the young man agreed too easily, and even signed a contract. She doesn't know what he's up to, but he's currently bound by the terms of his contract, so he needs to take full advantage of it. The maid she asked for has arrived. Her name is Leah Mervyn. Where did he find this girl? She was not scared at all when she saw her. This is all well and good, of course, but what about her skills? Then she showed how to cut her bangs, and added that after that she should complete all the assignments and find her a new dress. When the haircut was finished, our heroine said that it was simply excellent. Now she is looking forward to the banquet even more. That very day, the brother and sister were attacking Cullen and saying that he was completely crazy. Isn't it offensive to accompany this trash? Canna just found his weak spot. They can't believe the guy willingly agreed to this. After which, they declared that they absolutely did not want to ride with her in the same carriage, so they would ride in another, but that the young man replied that they could do as they wanted. The young man thought that for 2 weeks he had heard absolutely nothing from his sister. She continued to treat the baby, but he was unable to see her because he was constantly working and training. Her maid was often very busy, so there was no opportunity to ask anything. Canna may become even more distant if she finds out that he is trying to find out something about her. Then he realized why he was even thinking about this. He himself did not understand it. Maybe it's because of guilt. But why does he feel out of place? But the girl doesn't need anything from him, so there's no point in thinking about it. You need to try to forget. Suddenly, our heroine appeared, looking simply gorgeous, and asked how long he had been waiting for her. Then she came even closer and asked him how he liked her perfume. The guy didn't understand why she was asking him about such a thing, after which he muttered that it smelled nice. Canna noted to herself that he seemed embarrassed. The plan with the perfume worked. Then she took the young man by the arm and said that it was time to go to the celebration. Meanwhile, Isabel informed the princess that her sister would be a little late and that her brother, Cullen, would accompany her. Lillian has often been interested in her lately. Isabel thought to herself that she was the same woman that Sylvian used to avoid marrying her. It was too suspicious that they got engaged so suddenly. The girl tried to meet her in person at least once to find out the reason. But Canna does not attend banquets. Not only the princess, but also many other aristocrats noticed this, and now she finally decided to show her face. If she came to banquets, she either hid in a corner or ran into the garden. Her family doesn't really care about her, and doesn't even consider her a family member, a woman who has isolated herself. In that case, Canna is just a weakling who hides in corners from enemies. Let her continue to be modest. Meanwhile, high society had already begun to whisper that the same girl with black eyes and hair had arrived. Everyone has heard that she is ugly. That is why she does not attend such events. But who is this beauty then? Our heroine noted that so far everything was going as she had planned. But why was he still here? Half an hour had already passed, and her brother was frozen here like a statue. So she asked him if he wanted to go and talk to the aristocrats, but the young man replied no. The girl thought to herself why he was so stubborn, but it seemed she had successfully managed to attract attention to herself. She felt the murderous gaze of the second princess on her, which simply burned a hole in her. This is the woman who is very keen to get Sylvian, and in accordance with Canna's plan, it is necessary to talk to her at today's banquet. But first we need to get rid of Cullen. It would be great to just knock him out. Suddenly, a man's voice was heard exclaiming that he did not know that the young man would come here. Who was this beautiful lady next to him? The girl replied that Canna Valentino. Very nice to meet you. I thought to myself, what a wonderful show. He couldn't help but know who she was. The young man exclaimed that he couldn't believe it. They didn't look very much alike, so you couldn't tell they were brother and sister. Then he said his name was Colin Davis. Our heroine smiled sweetly, but she thought to herself that she saw right through him, and that everything was clear from his eloquent glances alone. Probably something like he heard that she had terrible black hair, but no one told him that she was such a beauty. The guy continued that he and Cullen have been close friends since early childhood, so he is looking forward to their new meeting. But suddenly, the young man grabbed him by the hand and hissed, "Who is this close friend of his here?" Colin started to whine that it hurt. Did he really want to break his arm? He just wanted to say hello. The guy asked where he had left his bride. Davis dejectedly muttered that it seemed she had gone out into the garden to get some air. Colin said that in that case, he would take him to her. The interlocutor tried to object, since she wanted to talk to his sister, but the young man interrupted him and said, "Go ahead." Our heroine had no idea why he was reacting so violently, but now she can finally go about her business. Finally, the young man told her to stay where she was, and he would soon return. The girl thought to herself, "No way, let him not bother. Otherwise he will stick to her like a leech." She has absolutely no time to play with him, because today is a very important day for her plan, and she is going to make the first move. Finally, Canna waited for the second princess to approach her. The girl immediately greeted her and said that it was a great honor for her to meet her. Lillian must side with her, and the first step will be for Iseberg to become our heroine's ally. The fact that the princess had chosen Sylviane as her fiancé was common knowledge, and the guy himself had a hard time pushing the princess away, so he was one step away from the real danger of marriage. Naturally, this was before the young man decided to use his pawn, Canna. The girl quickly took the young man away, but did not show her face at the events, so there was no opportunity to run into her. Therefore, the princess was madly interested in learning as much as possible about her. Her Highness said that earlier she had imagined that Addis was calling her. Our heroine asked if that was really so. Lillian said to leave this mannerism. If she were a man, she would definitely decide that Canna was seducing her. It came out extremely vulgar. Our heroine noted to herself that the princess was more straightforward than she thought, after which she said that she really wanted to meet her. The girl exclaimed, "Why?" and thought to herself that she had rudely snatched what Iseberg so desired. She wants to give her advice. The princess does not like to beat around the bush, so if there is something to say, it is better to say it directly. Our heroine replied that she thought she already knew what terrible neglect Canna had faced from her husband. Her Highness thought to herself that, of course, they say that even the weeds in the Duke's estate have a higher position than the Duchess, so she replied that she knew that their relationship was very reserved. Our heroine asked if she understood that Sylvian was just the kind of person he was, and would never change. Lillian replied that of course he did. Addis stated that she was too tired of his constant coldness, so she was not sure that she wanted to continue living in this marriage. She even returned to her father's house, but divorce is not an easy matter for a noble lady. Because it affects the family, naturally, her father did not approve of the divorce so easily. However, it would be good if a situation suddenly arose where it was impossible to save the marriage. This will be a completely different story. For example, Sylvian's betrayal. Or if the princess continues to put pressure on Duke Alexander. Any method will be good. So the best solution would be to become her partner. She can take Sylvian for herself. Lillian asked why she should trust her. Josephine appeared, who intervened in their conversation. Our heroine thought to herself, "Why did this damned mother-in-law come now?" Her Highness said that they were having an interesting conversation here. Duchess Valentino said that she was currently living in her father's house. The woman confirmed this. She added that she kicked her out because she couldn't stand it any longer. The princess immediately turned to her and exclaimed that she had said that she had left herself. Elister continued to broadcast that, since she sees that Canna has not returned yet, it can be concluded that she is again trying to attract her husband's attention in this way. The princess should not worry about it. Lillian thought to herself that it was all clear why she was standing there and listening to this woman, as if bewitched. If you think about it, it was still obvious that this girl would never have wanted a divorce herself in the first place. Iseberg recalled a maid asking if she had heard that the Duchess of Valentino was crawling on the floor, grabbing the Duke by the leg of his trousers. This story spread among the servants, which is not surprising, they say. She screamed shamelessly, all the way to the vestibule. Its purpose is clear, just a new way to attract attention using it. Canna Valentino is just playing with her. After which she hissed, "How dare she? Was she too weak in the gut? Did she find it funny?" Our heroine replied that she did not understand what she was talking about. Her Highness was mistaken. The girl silently poured a glass of red wine on Canna's dress, who did not understand what to do now. Lillian exclaimed that there was no need to misunderstand her. It was just a misunderstanding. Addis replied that, of course, an unfortunate accident had occurred. Her Highness's hand had simply trembled. The princess took another glass in her hands and said that another accident could happen now. Suddenly, the Empress appeared and exclaimed, "Why is it so noisy here? What is going on?" Canna thought to herself that the woman had accurately noted everything that had happened, so there was no point in trying to hide anything from her. Then she realized that she could use this to her advantage, after which she began to sob and say that she had caused trouble. Elister was indignant that she should have kept her fake tears to herself. How dare she behave like that? But the Empress asked her to speak more quietly. Then Her Highness hugged our heroine and said that everything was fine. There was no need to cry. The girl must have gone through something incredibly terrible. Addis did not expect that she would play along with her so well, but she said out loud that she would never do that again and would never, under any circumstances, cause her any trouble. The woman immediately turned to Lillian and said that she was disappointed in her, and didn't she think that such behavior was not befitting of the true princess that she was. The girl should follow the example of the first princess, who is modest and very caring. When will she stop being a spoiled child who does thoughtless things? Isabel thought to herself that, being the daughter of a mistress, every time she found herself in such a situation, she could not do anything, so she simply asked for forgiveness. But even if that were the case, is it really possible to humiliate a princess in front of so many people? She should have been more careful, because she knew that the Empress was here. If only Canna had not driven her to it, everything would have been different. Suddenly, the princess's mother appeared and asked if her daughter had been rude to someone again. Our heroine saw her for the first time, but immediately recognized who she was. The main character of novels and plays on the Western continent, which are now at the peak of popularity, known as the commoner who was born to be the emperor's mistress. There's a Iseberg. Previously, she only knew rumors about her, but now Kana sees with her own eyes why she was able to become the emperor's mistress. It's as if she has a halo over her head. Teresa said that she would definitely talk to her later. Let Her Majesty forgive her. The woman replied that, in that case, she leaves it to her. Lady Valentino, she said to come with her, as she wanted to treat her to a cup of warming tea. The girl thought to herself that, thanks to the Empress, she was able to somehow avoid this situation. However, why should she care about her so much? Apparently she has some hidden motives. But what ones? Then they came to some doors, and Her Highness said that they would talk there. Addis remembered saying that it had been a long time since she had touched such medicinal herbs. In the past, many doctors in the capital had dealt with them. Of course, they were not from the Western continent. The maid reported that their number had now greatly diminished. The Empress had already driven everyone out of the capital. They had failed and were unable to heal the first princess. The woman said that she wanted to introduce her daughter, the first princess of the empire, Amelia. Our heroine replied that it was a great honor for her to meet her, after which she introduced herself. She thought to herself that she was beginning to guess why she was invited. They wanted to show her this girl, why she was wearing a veil. There must be a special reason why she doesn't take it off even at banquets. For example, she has been suffering from a skin disease for a long time. Her Highness said that she heard that she was able to cure the youngest daughter of the House of Addis, and also that she used some unusual medicine, didn't she? The girl thought to herself that, of course, this was true. But how did she know about it, since Canna had asked the Duke to hide it? The woman added that she can talk about it calmly. Chloe Addis talked about what she did. Canna immediately thought to herself that the woman would never have done this with good intentions. But then why? At that very moment, a terrifying guess pierced her mind. She deliberately pushed the Empress to call her. If he cannot cure the princess, or she refuses treatment, then he will have grounds to expel her from the capital. If she makes a mistake even once, she will be able to brand her a fraud, and even involve the little one in it. Chloe may want to get rid of both of them at once, after which she replied that, yes, she did cure the baby. The woman muttered that this was very good, and told her daughter to take off her veil. The girl objected that she didn't want to, because she hated being filmed. After a short argument, the woman couldn't take it anymore, and screamed at her to take it off immediately. Amelia got mad, tore it off, and shouted for them to watch as much as they could, to see if they were happy now. She had black and red spots all over her skin, and around them was whitish flaking. It seems that this is the incurable disease that everyone has heard of. It seems as if a fungus has spread throughout the body. The woman said that many doctors tried to cure her, but the result was always almost zero. Sometimes it seemed that the disease had retreated, but then it returned again. No one could guarantee a noticeable improvement. Can Canna cure her? The girl replied that she does not even know the general state of her symptoms. Can Amelia be examined? The girl started to freak out, saying that she had already taken off everything. Wasn't that enough for her? But the Empress told her to take off all her clothes so that she could be fully examined. The princess screamed. How could her mother ask her about this? They were now in the room next to the banquet hall. Did she really want her to stand here naked like a clown? Maybe it would be better to just put it on display for everyone to see and make a show? Her Highness grabbed her head and said that she knew perfectly well that the disease had spread throughout her body, and the Duchess needed to examine her completely in order to cure it. The girl was freaking out that she didn't want to, because she hated all of this, but the woman asked her to calm down and not be stubborn. Amelia stood her ground and said that she would not show her body to the Duchess here. There was no need to even think about it. Our heroine did not understand why she was so angry with her, but she could perfectly understand the princess's feelings. All thanks to the fact that I got to know people during practice, how weak they can be. This also applies to those close to them who look after patients. The woman screamed that she was behaving stupidly, and that it was because of her terrible behavior that they had not been able to cure her for so long. Then she turned to the Duchess and asked her to cure the princess's illness. Did she know how many years they had been suffering from it? But this ugly skin does not go away. They even started spreading rumors that she gave birth to a decomposing corpse. Our heroine thought to herself that she was not treating her as a sick person, not as a princess, not even as a daughter. Amelia muttered that she was very sorry that her mother had to listen to such things. It would be better if she just died or disappeared from her life. Her Highness exclaimed, "What is she talking about? Let her watch her tongue." The daughter screamed, "How could her mother be the first to say such a thing? How could she call her a decomposing corpse? Why doesn't she tell him honestly, just die and disappear? Then she won't have to listen anymore that she gave birth to a living corpse, and she won't stand in the way of her beloved son anymore. So let him just order her to die." The Empress was outraged that she asked her to watch her language. Does she really want to be punished? Our heroine decided to intervene and said that, unfortunately, she did not have the necessary tools for treatment with her. Besides, this place is really not suitable for inspection. Let him allow her to visit them in the palace later for inspection. It will be better for everyone. Her Highness replied that, okay, that's exactly what they would do. Canna said that they had agreed, and then she would leave first. The girl thought to herself that she was finally able to get out of there. When she watches other people quarrel, it is very exhausting. After she leaves, they will probably continue to argue. It's just a terrible atmosphere. The Duchess is sure that they are both very tired after so many unsuccessful attempts. Going out onto the balcony, the girl thought that this was very difficult. So much had already happened in such a short time. Were all banquets like this, she was mentally exhausted. The plan to unite with the second princess was a complete failure. But in her hands appeared a better card, the Empress and the first princess. However, when she was going down the stairs, all the eyes of those present were fixed on her. There were no good intentions in them, and no one approached. Everything immediately became clear. They were interested in her. If the girl successfully healed the princess, and their expectations were high, then perhaps respect would appear. Orsini appeared on the balcony. Our heroine thought to herself, doesn't he check in advance whether there is someone on the terrace or not? The only thing she missed now was him. She hadn't seen the guy in the banquet hall. What a misfortune to meet him here. She had already suffered enough today, let him get out. But suddenly, the young man asked for forgiveness and said that he did not know that there was already someone there. The guy couldn't even imagine that such a beautiful woman was languishing here in anticipation. Canna didn't understand what kind of nonsense he was talking about, why he was speaking in such a gentle voice. Did he really not recognize her? Orsini declared that today was simply a wonderful night, perhaps all because he was in the company of such a lovely lady. Our heroine guessed that her brother thought that she had either dark blonde or dark purple hair, which looks black in the dark, and so he mistook her for a completely different person. Then it dawned on her that she could use him as she wanted. Of course it made her sick, but she had to play along with him to get revenge. Therefore, she muttered that he was flattering her, but the young man objected that, in no case, Orsini was sure that he was not the first to shower her with compliments at the first meeting. The girl replied that it was because she didn't really like banquets. She didn't attend them often, so she didn't know many people. Today, she decided to come. And as expected, something like this doesn't suit her at all. When the young man replied that it must be fate, since he also hated such events, Canna thought to herself that it was a good joke, since drinking and having fun were his favorite activities. After which he said that if the lady was not married, would she like to walk with him in the garden? He would like to accompany her if she did not mind. After a pause, our heroine replied that she would do so with great pleasure. I thought to myself that the young man looked disgustingly pleased, but let him enjoy this delight while he can. The despair into which he will plunge, having learned the whole truth, will be even more colossal. Watching them from the balcony, the guy asked if Duke Valentino really didn't care that his wife was going for a walk in the garden with another man. Sylvian asked if he was mistaken. His friend replied that no, he saw her from behind, but he was sure it was her dress. The first prince, named Argon Iseberg, added that he remembered her image because she looked unforgettable and magnificent. He understands that the Duke has just arrived and has not heard much yet, but the Duchess of Valentino looks irresistible today. Let him just not say that he had no idea about his beautiful wife. Sylvian immediately had a memory in her head of how she climbed into bed with him and told him that since they were married, they should do their marital duty. The young man hissed at her to leave his room before he called the servants, and they would throw her out. The prince asked how one could treat such a beautiful lady like that. Isn't that what men prefer? He didn't see who the man was, but one could guess that they were going to have fun together. Will the young man really allow this? She is his wife. Meanwhile, Orsini was saying that if he marries, he would prefer to be a husband who is attached to his family. It is normal for an aristocrat to have several wives, but he is not like that. One and only one will be enough for him. Canna thought to herself that with such a lunatic at the head of the family as he, she could only imagine its complete collapse. The young man continued to say that he would like to make her the happiest. He wants to devote himself completely to the one who will become his wife. Our heroine thought to herself that with every word he became more emotional, but all his words were useless. A fool who spent his whole life only drinking, partying, and training. It was becoming more and more difficult to listen to him. It just made me sick. Suddenly, the guy stopped and said that as for his words about family and a future wife, it was all a lie. In fact, he had never even thought about it before. The guy always couldn't stand men who indulged women with such speeches. He considered them fools, and now he himself behaved in exactly the same way. This is all because the young man fell in love with her at first sight. Canna thought to herself, "Congratulations!" He dug his own hole. Now, for the rest of his miserable days, he will suffer from the memories of this moment. Perhaps he will even bite his tongue out of shame. Just imagining it. The guy said that he was late with the question. But still, what is her name? Our heroine could not restrain herself and began to laugh loudly and heartily. The young man did not understand what had happened. Had he really made some kind of mistake? The girl said that she simply couldn't believe that he was saying all this seriously because it was so funny. Let him excuse me, of course, but it will be difficult for them to start a family. In their days, weddings between close relatives are not really allowed. Besides, she is married. When Orsini realized who was standing in front of him, he grabbed her by the shoulders and hissed that he would kill her. Canna replied that let him kill. Was it really so long ago that he had forgotten everything? Let him do the same as always. Lips broken, spitting blood, eyes swollen, full of tears from unbearable anger on his part, there is not a centimeter on her body that he would not dare to injure. Therefore, let the young man act as usual. I was thinking to myself, how did he manage to do all this? Did I manage to drive him crazy? Why is he hesitating? Let him explode already, like a true Orsini. When the pause dragged on, the girl realized that something was wrong and asked if he was going to take revenge on her. The boy said it was annoying. He couldn't recognize a pathetic piece of trash like her. And he was also talking nonsense. He was angry to himself. How did this happen? He was the one who always held this girl in his arms. Why now it seemed to him that they had changed places. After which he finally yelled, "Does she really think that she did something truly great? How did Canna even dare? Does she really think that she could insult him with this?" Our heroine replied that she wasn't sure, but he thought, judging by what he saw, it worked like a charm. The younger brother completely lost his temper and screamed that there was no need to be mistaken about who needed her anyway, after which he pushed her with all his might, so much so that she fell to the ground and simply walked away. Canna thought to herself that he would really just leave. How could this guy get offended so easily? Maybe he's drunk. She's not sane enough to go through all this right now. Although he always becomes more aggressive when he drinks. What's the big deal? The girl tried so hard to get him out of it. The young man hit her softly, but she wanted to get obvious evidence and use his cruelty as an excuse. She could even ask the Duke for help. Without evidence, everything will be hushed up, and no one will notice anything, because there is no video surveillance in this world. In any case, why bother with something that is not suitable, even today? In any case, it is of no use in this life. But she is still pleased that he was incredibly ashamed, so she is satisfied with this and can return. When our heroine got to her feet, she suddenly saw Sylvian in front of her. Valentino. What an unpleasant surprise. How long has he been standing here? She didn't even notice. Just don't tell her that the guy saw everything, although it's obvious what he'll do now. But in principle, she doesn't care, since she's not going to run into him. Having shaken herself off, Kanna was about to leave. But suddenly, the young man said that the grass was still left. Our heroine was taken aback by this turn of events. Did he really talk to her? In the memories of Juva, Sylvian was always the one who answered. Not once in 7 years did he approach her first. And now I decided to talk about the grass, but she should get rid of it, since she still has plans. While Kanna was looking for where else the grass was stuck, the guy came up to her and removed it. The girl asked to just tell her about it next time, since she can handle it on her own. Valentino suddenly asked if the guy had cleaned up. They seem to have had quite a busy time. She has bad taste in men. Addis didn't understand what he was talking about at first, but then it dawned on her that he thought she was here tumbling with a guy. So it turns out that Sylvian hadn't met Orsini. Previously, the young man considered her as a duchess, only in words, a silent doll who doesn't even show her nose at events. But what will happen if this doll dares to have an affair? What if everyone starts pointing fingers at the Valentino family? It's probably offensive. Maybe he'll even decide to replace her with another doll. If Sylvian himself wants a divorce, Duke Alexander will have no choice but to approve it. After which she replied that, indeed, at present, her taste in men is simply terrible, which is why she is married to a duke. The guy asked if she admitted it. At night, in an empty garden, in such a mess, even her face was burning. Our heroine thought to herself that her face was burning because Orsini was shaking her violently. Then she replied that she was not satisfied. It was not as rich as she expected. In general, he has nothing to worry about. Since when did he become interested in her personal life? The young man replied that it did not matter what she did. Let her please make sure that his family's reputation was not harmed. This is a lawn outside. Even animals don't do that. Isn't that worse? What she just did cannot be considered as behavior appropriate for an aristocrat. Kanna thought to herself that she had deliberately presented everything in such a light in order to divorce him. But who gave him the right to talk about her like that? The guy never even looked at Juva. When she so desperately craved his attention, even after their wedding, on their wedding night, the girl waited for her husband until dawn. Even after returning to this body, he could not distinguish that his wife had become a different person, because he continued to neglect her. Sylvian never perceived her as an equal human being. After which she said that she could really understand how much he cared about the prestige of his family. Considering that the husband didn't even show up on their wedding night, why, 7 whole years later, did he suddenly become interested in how his wife was doing in her personal life? The young man grabbed his head and said that she was doing all this because he didn't hugged her that night. Our heroine thought to herself that this was not at all the reaction she expected. So she said that she had no idea how he came to such an idea. The young man said that he kept wondering if it was the events of the past that had hurt her so much. The girl replied that she remembered that night, but he shouldn't worry, since she was doing it for a completely different reason. On the contrary, at that very moment, she finally realized that he had never seen her as his wife. She just realized too late that it was impossible. Let him not misunderstand her. The girl understands that he was very busy with work, so his male strength left him. What a shame, considering how young he is. But he has nothing to worry about. She is not one of those who like to gossip about others. But she is still a little upset about this. He should have told her about it before the wedding. If our heroine had known about this in advance, she would hardly have married the Duke. Unexpectedly, the young man replied that she should allow him to take a step forward and dispel all doubts. Kanna thought to herself that he really thought she was doing this for attention, that Sylvian was really going to get her into bed like that. After which she said that she had no feelings left for him. She just wanted a divorce as soon as possible. The only reason it was being delayed was because her father had not yet given permission. The girl is trying to make it happen as soon as possible, so that she hopes that in the future there will be no unpleasant surprises involving him. She will definitely achieve a divorce. The Duke said, "Oh well, that can't be." After which he wished good night and began to leave. Addis noted to herself that from his facial expression, one could understand that he didn't believe her at all. But the guy would still see everything. She would prove it to him. The next day, the maid reported that Orsini had gone out to train with the sword before dawn. She had heard that it was the novice knights who were training others, so he had returned to learning the basics. Canna thought to herself that he was already one of the best swordsmen in the empire. Besides, he would never go back to the basics to learn a new discipline. In other words, he's doing this because he's terribly embarrassed to cross paths with her, and from now on the mansion will be much more comfortable. Suddenly, another maid looked into the room and said that the Duchess had a guest. The girl was in a good mood, so she asked who it was, because she did not remember anyone notifying her of their visit. When she arrived at the room where they were waiting for her, she was simply dumbfounded when she saw that very guest. It turned out to be the first prince of the Argon Empire, who said that they finally met, because he had been waiting for her for a long time. But everything was fine, she could just apologize. The girl couldn't even believe her eyes at first. Why did he need her? She doesn't think that she did anything that would somehow affect him. The young man took her hand and said that now, when he looked at her closely, he saw that she was even more beautiful. Canna was taken aback and muttered that it was a great honor to meet His Highness. The guy said that her voice was also beautiful, and her scent was simply captivating. Addis thought to herself that his gaze made her feel uncomfortable in her father's house, but asked why he was looking for a meeting with her. When the young man reported that the Empress had asked to invite her, the girl said that in that case she would immediately prepare the things necessary for the trip. The prince said that she needn't hurry. He wouldn't be at all burdened to wait for such a beautiful lady. On the contrary, he would only be glad. After some time, having sat down in the carriage, our heroine thought to herself that there were no guards or servants with them. Was it normal for a member of the imperial family to move around like that? Breaking the silence, the young man said that he still couldn't figure out what kind of suitcase she had with her. Canna didn't want to keep up a conversation with him the whole way, so she replied that it was nothing special. Argan replied that, of course, in that case he would read a book. The girl was surprised that the guy gave in so easily. She thought that he would perceive it as rudeness. As stated before, he is Princess Lillian's older brother, so Canna expected him to have the same bad temper as his sister. But it seems she misjudged him beforehand. Watching him, one can say that he is more like Teresa. The trip will be more comfortable than she feared. However, something was strange. Why did the Empress send her mistress's son for her? Usually, such serious issues as the princess's illness are resolved within the imperial court twice. So why did she send someone who is a thorn in her side? Suddenly, the young man slammed the book shut and said that he had one question. Could he ask it? It so happened that he heard that his sister had insulted a girl, and she even cried because of it. Canna didn't understand why he suddenly decided to talk about this. He would probably try to protect Lillian, then replied that it was true. The guy muttered that it was a pity that he hadn't seen anything, since he had been alone on the terrace. He would have liked to see her tear-stained face, but he believes that he will still have such an opportunity, after which he returned to reading the book. Our heroine was perplexed by what just happened. How can one end the dialogue like that? Rumor has it that he's a real psycho. He doesn't look like a threatening person, but he's not normal either. He's just a weirdo. Suddenly, the carriage ran over a stone. The girl could not stay in place, so she fell right on the prince. The young man immediately asked if everything was okay, as she almost hit her face on the glass. Our heroine replied that she was fine, but she thought to herself that it scared her. If it weren't for him, she could have broken her nose. Suddenly, the doors opened, and the servant asked if everything was okay with them. He apologized for this. There seems to be something wrong with the wheels. They will have to replace them. Could they come out for a while? Having jumped outside, the young man noted that there was simply a sea of dirt around. Then, he told our heroine that if she didn't want to get dirty, he could help her. But the girl did it herself and said that everything was fine. There was no need for it. I wouldn't want to cause any trouble. She can handle this kind of thing herself. She's lucky the suitcase didn't break. When the guy asked if she would hold him herself, and Kana answered that she would, the prince said that it was sad. She was upsetting him. After which, with one blow, he killed the young man who was standing behind him. The girl was shocked and thought to herself that she was taking her words back. He was not a weirdo, but a real psycho. His Highness asked her what she thought, why he did it, and what he was going to do with her. Then he cut her shoulder and said that it was a mistake. Kana thought to herself that it didn't look like he was trying to point the sword somewhere else. Was he really going to kill her? Argon continued, "Does she think that she can handle this alone? Perhaps now she will desire his favor." Addis wondered if it was all because she had refused his favor, if that was a reason to threaten to kill her, if he was really that much of a psychopath. What to do now? She has a couple of protective herbs in her suitcase, but she is not in a position to try her luck. She has no choice but to do what he wants, so she replied that she needs his favor. Now the young man can carry her, as her clothes are getting more and more wet. Our heroine can't take such risks. She only has one life, and she values it. So now she needs to be nice to this crazy psycho. When people in cloaks appeared around, the guy said that the carriage needed to be repaired, and he also killed the coachman, so a new one was needed. Kana was surprised that he didn't even hide it. If she tried to use herbs on him, these guys would have immediately cut her down. It's good that she decided to pretend to be nice. The prince turned to her and said that it was time for them to return to the carriage. He would make sure that she did not get dirty or wet again. When the guy was whining at her to be careful and not hit her head, our heroine couldn't believe that this man had just killed someone. After some time, they finally arrived at the imperial palace. As soon as they met Teresa, the prince immediately left them as if nothing had happened. The woman noticed that she had hurt her hand and said that she needed to show it to a doctor. But the girl objected that there was no need to worry. It was just a small scratch. She could cure it herself. Then she asked if she had any problems with Argon. Let him be sure. She would scold him properly later. But now she needed to go to Amelia. On the way, Addis calmed herself down and said that it was all in the past. It was good that her hands had stopped shaking. The most important thing now is to cure the princess, because she doesn't think anyone will take her side, even if she tells everything. The girl has dermatitis all over her body. It has a characteristic red pattern with slightly yellowish tones. This is most likely nummular eczema. The skin is covered with characteristic patterns that look like gold coins. Then she asked whether they had tried to treat the disease, whether they had taken any medicine. The woman replied that they had followed the instructions of the imperial advisors. She did not take anything internally, only smeared the ointment, after which she ordered that it be brought and shown to the Duchess. When they handed her the bottle and added that, after she applied it, the itching subsided. Our heroine was taken aback that it was a dark gray substance. The Empress reported that everyone gave her the same recommendations for her treatment. It was usually advised to bathe her 3 times a day in a bath with hot water and several herbs, and then apply ointment to the areas affected by the disease. Our heroine asked in bewilderment how they could prescribe mercury to her. This is a metal that becomes liquid at room temperature and also has a sterilizing effect, which is why it was used in the West to treat syphilis and skin diseases. He was also well known in the West, as it was said that his medical abilities were responsible for the remarkable fortitude of the late Emperor Sinshi. However, the substance contains a deadly toxin, which has led many people to mercury addiction. Kana remembered hearing about it at the group presentation, but didn't expect that knowledge to be useful here, so she asked how long she had been taking the drug. When Teresa replied that it had been about 2 weeks, the girl exhaled that if she stopped using it now, she could avoid addiction. When Addis said that this could no longer be accepted, the Empress objected that without him, the princess's condition would only worsen. Our heroine thought to herself that they had added a few extra drugs to the mercury, but even so, it was still poisonous. After which she said that this cannot be used. She also needs to reduce the number of baths she takes, even if it is uncomfortable for her. Please let her wash only once a day. Let her avoid getting water on damaged areas of skin as much as possible. If questions arise, she will be happy to answer them. Suddenly, the girl said that she really wanted the princess to stop being treated. Didn't she understand that in this way, she was simply causing her to die from scabies all over her body? And why should she reduce the number of baths? The girl wants her body to be soaked with sweat and fluid from wounds or something. How dare she mock her? They brought in some charlatan again to treat her. The Duchess is trying to fool them. Amelia is not going to be treated by her method. Kanna said that if she did not stop using this medicine now, she would never be cured of her illness. Her Highness was taken aback by such a statement and asked how she dared to speak to her like that. Addis explained that she understands that it is important for her to be clean, but 3 times a day is too much. Excessive bathing and washing makes her skin dry, and this only worsens its condition. In addition, this medicine is made on the basis of mercury, although it helps to reduce itching. It is poisonous. But I did not finish the last word, since this approach is not entirely correct. Mercury is widely trusted throughout the continent as a medicine. No one will believe it if it claims to be toxic without solid evidence. So having simply said that this ointment was so strong that it was making her condition worse, the princess asked if Kanna wanted to say that all the other doctors had prescribed her medicine incorrectly, even the royal advisor. Our heroine objected that they were also people who could not cure her illness. She was told that her skin condition had been causing her discomfort for a very long time. Does this not mean that all the treatments she had previously received were not very suitable for her? When our heroine added that this itch must be endured, Amelia began to get furious. She screamed that there was no need to talk, as if it was easy. Would she have used this ointment if she could endure it? Does she understand how painful this is? Her whole body itches so much that she wants to die. It hurts so much as if she were burning alive. Could Addis endure it if she were in her place? Kanna understood that the princess had been suffering for so long that patients like her no longer accepted logical solutions. So she said that if she wanted to get better, she would have to accept it. She will make some medicine to help her with this. She will feel better after applying it, and it is necessary to change clothes. Cotton ones will be more suitable. The princess hissed. What cotton? Does she really want Amelia to dress like a commoner? Our heroine calmly explained that there are damaged areas all over her body. It is necessary to wear clothes that allow the skin to breathe. In this case, cotton is more suitable than silk. The girl immediately exclaimed that she did not know that everything was so serious. So she immediately ordered that some cotton clothes be brought to her, after which she began to ask what else she needed to do. Let the Duchess speak quickly. Kanna said that she would also recommend changing the bed linen in her bedroom. It is better to use cotton bedspreads. The princess immediately screamed, "Did everyone hear her? Let them write it down immediately. Not a word of what was said should be missed." Our heroine thought to herself that the girl had really suffered a lot. In her age, what she said would be considered nonsense by most people. But she could not believe that Amelia was clinging to it so desperately. The Empress asked if that was all, or if something else was needed. Kanna replied that she needed to get some herbs from the East. Would she be able to do that? Teresa replied that she had enough connections with merchants. She could easily get everything she needed. Just let him say what he needed. For the sake of saving her daughter, the woman would get anything. Addis thought to herself that the Empress really cared about her daughter. Her cooperation would only make her job easier. She was glad that the first treatment session had gone smoothly. After some time, the coachman announced that they had arrived back at the estate. Kanna was feeling unwell, as her head was spinning. When the young man asked if she needed help, the girl replied that no, everything was fine. Suddenly, our heroine felt pain in her arm, and the smell of blood made her sick. The wound was deep. Maybe it was all because she had relaxed now. The girl tried to find the reason in a logical way, but she doesn't really know what's happening to her. And finally, the shock state from her mind flooded her entire body. And all because today she will have to face an even more unpleasant situation. It was Duke Alexander, and he had a sword with him, very similar to the one that the prince had. As soon as the girl thought that she needed to get out of here, the man came up to her and said that he had been waiting for her. Then the father noticed her injury and asked what had happened to her. Our heroine was surprised since when he cared about her condition, so she replied that it didn't matter. Let him take his hand away. She thought to herself that if she told him, would he listen? Today they threatened to kill his daughter, but there was no one who could help her. She knew that the crown prince wanted her dead, so she had to sacrifice her pride and exchange it for her life. Just to save herself, her father would yell in response. Who cares about her anyway? She knows it perfectly well, so it doesn't matter whether she says it or not. Nothing will change. None of this matters anymore. The girl is doing just fine on her own. It's always been that way. After which she added that she was very tired today, so she wanted to go and rest. But the man insisted and asked him to explain what happened to her. Kana asked why he needed to know this, whether he wanted to find that person and reward him, or what. Then she asked her again to let her go and went to her room. While Addis was sleeping, she dreamed of her family from her past life, and her mother worriedly asked if it hurt a lot. Dad said he would make her some porridge with abalone, just the way she likes it, let her wait a little. The younger brother wished her a speedy recovery so that they could eat chicken together. But when the girl opened her eyes, she saw Cullen in front of her, who stated that she had woken up. Our heroine immediately asked what he was doing there. The guy replied that she fainted in front of him. He thought that she would be uncomfortable in her evening clothes, so he asked the servants to change her clothes and also replace the bandage with a fresh one. Addis looked out the window and thought that none of this interested her. Let him just go away. It was only just dawn, but she already felt much better after sleep. As expected, her psyche was in shock, and she was also physically tired, because a man had been killed right in front of her, and she herself had almost been killed. Her heart was still pounding wildly, just thinking about it, as she had never seen such a horrible death, but there was no point in dwelling on it so much, as there was a lot of work to do. When she began to get out of bed, the young man said that she should rest a little more, but Kanai objected that everything was fine, so he could return to his place. When asked what kind of wound she had on her hand, the girl replied that it was nonsense and that he didn't need to know. The young man stopped her and said that they had not finished their conversation. Addis replied that she had nothing more to talk about with him. The younger brother replied that he had something to say. She should know something. Our heroine objected that she didn't owe anyone anything. The guy asked where she was going at such a time. Kana answered that she was going to the lab. She needed to prepare something. Cullen went on to say that his sister had better rest today, as she was pale and looked as if she was about to faint again. The girl couldn't stand it and screamed that she told him not to call her that. How gladly she is his sister. Who is he to call her that and interfere in her affairs? She is nobody to him, and he is nobody to her. So there is no need to attach importance to this just now, because it is disgusting. No need to make such a face over a couple of words. They were nothing compared to what he did to her. She has no idea what he was thinking about when he changed his attitude. But for her, it was only fleeting. She succumbed to the moment. The guy objected that what happened was in the past. The young man really regrets what happened in the past, so he just wanted to fix their relationship in the future. Our heroine laughed and asked what he was talking about. Who needed it anyway? He, as always, has his own mind. When he doesn't like her, she should drag herself along, but still should be nice to him, even if she hates it. The young man objected that everything was not so. But if so, then he would not say a word to her. They can't help but cross paths. Will she really continue to avoid him? Their past won't change the fact that they are relatives. Didn't she look for him while she was sick? Didn't she call him little brother while she was sleeping? Deep in her heart, Kana would like to count on her family, wouldn't she? So the sister can rely on him, since she only has him. Last night, her father just looked at her unconscious and did not want to help, and her brother was the one who took care of her all this time. Cullen, when he saw her, immediately took her in his arms and shouted that his sister had fainted. Hearing this, Alexander remained standing in place, unshakable, like a castle in a frosty winter. Filled with furious emotions, the man wanted to say something to his son, but changed his mind, simply turned around, and left. Therefore, the young man insisted that he was the only one who had Kangi. But suddenly, the girl snorted and replied that the younger brother she was calling was not him. Does he really think that she could be somehow offended by the Duke's actions? In her dream, she saw her little brother from her past life. Isn't it too arrogant to think that it was Cullen? The young man muttered in confusion. What if not him? Then who? Isabel or Orsini? Addis replied that no. They had been apart for more than 7 years. Did he really think that during that time, she could not have had a man who became like a younger brother to her? There is one child, about his age, whom she considers close to her, or rather, that man is her brother. He is the only one she is looking for, but not Cullen. Having called him an obscene word, the guy hissed who he was. The girl was indignant. How dare he speak like that? The guy asked her why she was angry that he called the kid she considered her brother a bad name. Kana grabbed her head and said that she regretted deciding to talk to him. After which, our heroine hissed at him to get out of her sight, while still politely asking. The young man shouted that, okay, if that's what she wants, then he'll leave everything as it is. He's not going to take care of her anymore. Let her do what she wants. Addis thought to herself that it was disgusting to see him freaking out, as if she had been unfair to him. Could he really have thought about his past mistakes and wanted to improve the relationship? It's just absurd. He should have said something like that before she created this medicine. She invented it with the purpose of committing suicide on her 14th birthday. It can stop the heart. At that moment, the girl drank it without any regrets. So miserable was her life. However, it did not work. The effect was insufficient. But now this is what is needed. Kanna doesn't want any trouble because of this fool, and she can't afford to stay like this, because she was asked with an important request. After Addis finished consulting the princess yesterday, the empress personally escorted her to her carriage and asked for forgiveness for her daughter's behavior. Amelia became embittered because of her illness, and before she was a sweet child and behaved well, the woman could not even imagine that such a day would come. Then she came to her senses and said that she should not have said all this. When the girl replied that everything was fine, Teresa added that, in any case, she was looking forward to their cooperation because she trusted her. Then she said that she always has a pleasant aroma. What kind of perfume does she use? Because she had never heard anything like it before. Our heroine replied that it was difficult to get in stores, but she could bring it as a gift. This was the perfume that the girl sold in her shop in her past life. This scent does not exist in this world, but she can create it using plants from the East. She had been preparing it diligently for 2 weeks, planning to advertise it widely at the banquet. But this plan failed, since no one approached her because of the scandal with Lillian, and unexpectedly, the Empress would become the first client. Then I decided that it was necessary to get down to business. This would be an important step towards subsequent plans. Meanwhile, the Crown Prince was telling Sylvian that he had encountered his wife, that up close she was even more beautiful. His heart was trembling. Did the Duke feel the same? When the young man answered that no, the guy asked if he was definitely not into men, but he again answered, definitely not. Argon asked why he was then not interested in how they met the Duchess, or how he hugged her, watching her frightened face. Wasn't he curious? Valentino replied that no. When the prince said, what if he said that he cut her with a sword? The Duke's expression immediately changed, and he asked whether the guy had killed her. The young man replied that it was not Kanna, but a spy who was pretending to be a coachman. He planned to let him go. He was too lazy to get dirty, but still took advantage of the opportunity to get rid of him. Sylvian replied that, of course, since she had not died, there would be no need to search for a new wife. Argon stated that his sword is filled with magical stones. Even a small scratch is enough to cause severe bleeding. Some even lose consciousness. Is he not interested in this too? The young man hissed that he was not interested in this, and that it was none of His Highness's business. So he asked him to stop paying so much attention to the concerns of the Valentino family. The prince declared that he was cold. If such a beauty were his wife, he would keep her closer. The Duke is very stupid. After some time, our heroine's everyday life began to flow quite calmly, all because Duke Alexander, Cullen, and even Sylvian went on a military campaign, as monsters suddenly began to appear from the black fog. But this still did not mean that her everyday life was quiet and boring. Amelia was freaking out, because everything was itching. She wanted to die from this unbearable itching. This was the 5th day of treatment. Each time the girl breaks a vase in her emotions, and it seems this is already the 5th. However, despite her strong anger, she never threw them in her direction. On the contrary, she tried to do it in such a way that not a single fragment would reach Kanna. Amelia does not want to cause harm. She is just in great pain. The princess screamed when the medicine would be ready. It seemed like her skin was burning. She was in such pain that she wanted to die. However, she followed Addis's instructions without question. The girl stopped using mercury, which made her feel better, began to wear cotton clothes of commoners, and did not scratch the inflammations. Her Highness was able to do this only thanks to her stubbornness and determination. It is precisely such patients who melt the hearts of doctors. Kanna apologized for having to wait so long, and said that she had brought an ointment that would replace mercury for her. Records of this ointment remained in ancient medical encyclopedias, and since then it has been widely used for external use. It was the best-selling product in its online store. Since she had done this many times before, it was done quite quickly. But due to the very long delivery of the medicines, the preparation took a long time. Amelia asked if it would stop itching if she used it. Canna replied that it would only stop itching if she applied it constantly. The princess said that she heard that the herbs that Her Majesty asked for were delivered only yesterday. She thought that it would take several days to make the ointment, but it happened so quickly. Addis said that it must have been very difficult for her, but she endured everything. The girl followed all her instructions well, so Canna also wanted them to get well soon. She thought to herself that if the herbs from the Empress had arrived faster, the princess would have gotten rid of the itching long ago. Teresa said that she had connections with Eastern traders, so why was there such a delay? In a past life, it would have been delivered the same day. Although no, in her online store, it was possible to do it even faster if the desired product was in stock, because she always made bestsellers in large quantities. I wonder how Ju is doing. However, what difference does it make? She is probably surrounded by the care of her loving family, unlike our heroine. Her thoughts were interrupted by the voice of Her Highness, who exclaimed that she seemed to feel better at once. It still itched, but she could bear it. Canna reported that her treatment would also include a herbal decoction, which would need to be taken 3 times a day, and that she should not forget about it under any circumstances. When our heroine was getting ready to go home, the girl asked her for forgiveness for her antics and for throwing vases. When Canna replied that everything was fine, Amelia suggested having a cup of tea and a little chat. Our heroine didn't expect this, but she thought, why not? She doesn't see anything bad in it. While drinking tea with the princess, she didn't even notice how quickly time flew by. The sun was already setting. Amelia said that the Empress, along with the medicinal herbs, bought something else, a very rare tea, so the princess hopes that Addis will like it. A week ago, our heroine could not have imagined that she and Her Highness would become so close. After all, their first meeting was simply terrible. And besides, she put her life on the line for this deal. But now she is grateful that they met. The more often they see each other, the more attached they become. A few days later, Teresa thanked our heroine for such a valuable perfume. She will use it often. By the way, the Empress is probably wasting her time asking her to cure the princess, since 2 weeks have passed. But the illness still does not go away. Canna thought to herself that it was impossible to get rid of a serious skin disease in such a short time, but Amelia was more patient, unlike the Empress, after which she said that this disease is not one of those that can be cured quickly. Do not worry, soon the princess's skin will stop itching. In general, the treatment is progressing very well. Suddenly, Her Highness was informed that the second prince had come to her, and the woman cried out for him to come in. The guy is the Empress's natural son and Amelia's brother, as well as the man who will become the next monarch, and his name is Crescent. The woman asked what the reason was for his coming. He could have sent someone with an order, and she would have personally brought everything that was needed. The young man said that he had heard that his sister had a new attending physician. The Duchess immediately said that it was a great honor for her to see him, after which she introduced herself. Crescent asked how his sister was. He would like to visit her, but his mother stubbornly holds him back. Teresa screamed at him not to go to the princess's palace under any circumstances. It was full of different bacteria, so he shouldn't even think about doing it. The son told her not to worry. The Empress asked her to promise her, since he would not be able to keep it if this disease passed on to him. What would they do then? Canna thought to herself that it was understandable that her son was the future emperor, so she treasured him. But the woman expressed herself so harshly, it was extremely unpleasant to watch this scene. Our heroine wanted to escape from there as soon as possible, but for some unknown reason, the prince invited her for a walk. The guy said that he didn't manage to attend Lillian's banquet, but she had heard how beautiful Addis was. And it was true. The girl pretended to be embarrassed and said that he was exaggerating, but to herself, she thought that he should get down to business and say what he needed. The young man continued to say that in addition to her beauty, she was also a skilled healer. Canna began to think that this was somehow strange. It seemed that they were gradually moving away from people and secluding themselves, and this long conversation was literally about nothing. Suddenly, the prince stopped and announced that at last, there was no one around, and they were left completely alone. Kanna didn't understand what was going on. Was he really as inadequate as his brother? But suddenly, he put a water vessel in her hand and said that it was an antidote, something that could save her and his sister. The guy hoped that she would keep it a secret from other people. The girl didn't even have time to ask anything when the knights appeared and said that she had to go with them. The men reported that this was an imperial decree, that the one who caused the death of Princess Amelia must be immediately detained. According to the maid herself, the girl kept talking about being tired all day. Then the princess began to cough up blood, lost consciousness, and never got up again. According to the imperial physician, cardiac arrest occurred due to an excess of poison in the body. And the very first suspect is Kanna. Teresa screamed that she asked to cure her daughter and trusted the girl, and she killed her. Our heroine replied that she did not do this, and the accusation was false. The woman claimed that every meal of the imperial family was carefully checked for poison, but she had been poisoned, and the only thing that could have poisoned her was her ointment. When Kanna said that it was not her, the empress struck her again and exclaimed, "Who then and how could have done this? Amelia could only have been poisoned by her herbs. Let her confess already and ask for forgiveness from her daughter, who, having trusted her, followed the treatment and eventually died." Our heroine looked her in the eyes and said that she was repeating again, it was not her. The empress was indignant that she still had the audacity to deny this. From now on, no one should bring her water or food until she confessed everything. Lying on the floor, our heroine thought that, of course, the first thing that comes is assault. She knew that the real essence of the empress was hidden under this mask. This is not the first time she has been falsely accused. But this case is the worst of all. Throwing aside all norms of decency, they treated her worse than cattle. And they don't even have any concrete evidence. The reason they don't value her is because she is a duchess. Nobody cares about her. She has no way to defend herself, and no one to defend her. But now the girl needs strength in order to survive and stand firm in this tough world, and only she can force herself to move on. Meanwhile, the empress decided to check whether her daughter Amelia was really dead. The woman begged her that the cardiac arrest was just an incorrect conclusion by the doctor. It's all her fault. Let her forgive her for hurting her with her words. Suddenly, the emperor appeared, Luke Iseberg, who hissed how she could allow the treatment of the princess by a person who has no medical education, and also Canna Valentino. Teresa muttered that she just wanted her daughter to get better so desperately that she had gone completely crazy and that it was all her fault. The man thought to himself that the empress had acted very stupidly, which was not typical of her. Despite her cruelty and ruthlessness, she was quite smart. Therefore, he could not even imagine that she would act in such a way and bring his daughter to death. Anyway, what's past is past. Canna Valentino is in jail now, and that's great. After which he stated that the trial would take place tomorrow, and right now the Dukes of Addis and Valentino are in a black fog, and it would be better if they closed this case while they were away. This girl killed a member of the imperial family. Her husband and family will never be able to clear their names, and he is absolutely serious. These families are the descendants of the Holy Knights, those who drove away the black fog, whose bloodlines are considered nobler than the imperial ones. They are like an eyesore. He cannot exterminate their race, since they are needed by the entire Western continent. It would be nice to show these noble families once who is their master. This is a great chance to take away their former glory and return all the honors to themselves. So using this useless girl is a very good option to disgrace these families. After which, he declared that he wanted this to be a public trial, so that the people could see it too. The man places all responsibilities entirely on the empress, and she will direct the entire process. Valentino and Addis families entirely. Let him only mention Canna. He will tell the Supreme Court everything himself. He thought to himself that in this way the eldest daughter of the Addis family and the countess of the Valentino family would be ridiculed in front of the common people. Then His Highness added that Canna would be sentenced to death. Had they agreed with the empress? The next day, in the courtroom, people shouted that she had black hair, which was indeed the same color as the ominous fog. They see black eyes for the first time. How disgusting it is. The empress ordered everyone to remain silent, as it was time to begin. The judge declared the session open and told the duchess to stand up, But those present continued to shout that the black-haired one had killed Her Highness, and that this witch should be hung upside down and set on fire. One of those present was her younger brother, who was hiding under a black hood. The girl thought to herself that a public trial is held extremely rarely, today about 100 commoners. The reason the Empress tolerates all this is because she had planned to do this to her from the very beginning. Simply put, the purpose of this show trial is to humiliate the families that are connected to our heroine. The judge said that Canna Valentino was entrusted with the treatment of the princess. Is this true? The girl replied that yes. The man asked if it was true that she had used oriental herbs to develop the medicine. Canna replied that yes. Immediately, screams began to be heard that she treated the seriously ill Amelia with only herbal tea. What kind of nonsense is this? Especially since she doesn't even have a medical education. His Honor added that they had preserved the herbs which the Duchess had used, and had called as a witness a pharmacist who was the manager of an Oriental tea house. Our heroine thought to herself that a tea house is just a tea cafe. So here the common man who makes drinks is called a pharmacist. Judging by his clothes and the amount of jewelry, he somehow suddenly became rich. The witness was told to look carefully at the herbs that were part of the medicine and say whether they were suitable for treatment. The man replied that he understood. Then he stated that, having examined the herbs, it could be said that among them was the three-spined honey locust, the main characteristics of which are a thin base and a round cross-section. The dried thorns of this tree are actually a medicinal product. When asked whether this plant is dangerous for humans, the man replied that it is not at all, although he is not sure whether it is possible to say such obscene things in court. The whole point is that this tree is a remedy against constipation. The common people did not understand what he was talking about. What constipation? Because Her Highness had a skin disease. He is clearly some kind of charlatan, a pharmacist in name only. How could they bring him as a witness? The man exclaimed that he was not finished yet. Besides this, the Duchess also used rhubarb, honeysuckle, cordyceps, and 7 more names of Oriental medicines. She mixed all this and cooked it like some kind of potion. There is a high probability that this mixture became the poison. The judge asked if he was sure of this. The pharmacist replied that yes, only one type of herb is always used for the decoctions to achieve the desired effect, and Canna used honey locust in huge quantities, which led to dehydration. From this alone, one can understand how chaotically and madly the Duchess acted. Our heroine could not stand it, since she could not listen to it any longer, and said that everything he said was a lie. It is not true that honey locust is a remedy for constipation. The thorns are not used to treat it. The man was indignant. What was she talking about? The girl continued that, in the treatment of this disease, they use dried husks from the seeds of the honey locust tree. It seems that the person is not aware of the medicinal properties of this plant. The man was indignant that he was actually a pharmacist here. How dare she lecture him about herbs? The girl replied that he did not understand her. She was not trying to teach him, but simply pointed out the place where he made a mistake. If he is so sure that he is right, then he can look in the reference book of medicinal herbs, and then they will find out who is actually right. The witness thought to himself that she was a brainless girl. Did she even know how many decoctions from this plant he had sold in his entire life? How could anyone doubt his specialty? So he said that they would check right now. After the man buried his face in the reference book, a deathly silence fell over the courtroom, and he was asked why he was silent. The man stuttered and replied that it was written there that the thorns were used for swelling and helped to release pus. Those present were surprised that he really didn't know about this. They needed to look for another tea house. Our heroine said that this is one of the best remedies for treating skin diseases. The reference book also says about it. The pharmacist did not understand how she knew all this. Even he was hearing about it for the first time. But he muttered that it was true. Canna thought to herself that she didn't know how much they paid him to come here. But if he was going to insult others, he should be prepared to bury his career. The man stated that the problem is not only in honey locust. It is absolutely forbidden to mix more than 10 types of honey locust into one decoction. The Duchess gave Her Highness an extremely dangerous drug to drink. People immediately began to whisper that she had cooked this mixture, which turned into poison, which meant she had definitely killed her. The girl replied that she did not deny that thoughtlessly mixing herbs was dangerous. But, to be more precise, only combinations of herbs with opposite properties that could not be used together would be dangerous. The Empress grabbed her head and asked how much longer they would listen to this nonsense. Let the judge say something already. Despite the fact that he has been told 100 times what the Duchess is guilty of, he continues to delay the verdict. Does it really mean nothing to him? Canna tried foreign methods on her. She insulted not only Amelia, but the entire imperial family. For this crime, it would be most appropriate to destroy all 3 generations of families with which Addis is associated. However, His Imperial Highness highly values the achievements of the Valentino and Addis families and conveys that he will not place blame on them. When she added that, based on this, only the Duchess would be punished, Canna thought that she knew it. In this world, the imperial family stands above all laws. Teresa screamed that the judge really thought the imperial family's decision was wrong. The man replied that it was absolutely right. The court finds that Canna Valentino is guilty of murdering the princess through negligent disposal of medicinal herbs. This is a serious crime, which, according to the laws of the empire, deserves the destruction of 3 generations. However, His Imperial Highness showed mercy, taking into account the merits of the Valentino and Addis families. The court sentences to death only the Duchess who committed the crime. People were shouting that she should die. There was no point in shedding tears. She should die for killing the princess. But the girl thought that everything had gone too far. Why our heroine can't do anything the way she wants? The trial, with a predetermined ending, was very boring. Everyone present saw how she was led out with her head down and thought that she was crying, but in fact, she lowered her head to hide the extremely bored expression on her face. How much time had passed since she returned to prison again? But suddenly, a man in a black cloak appeared. It was her younger brother Orsini who removed her hood and said that she looked rather poor. Our heroine asked if he hadn't gone to military training. The young man asked her in response, why did she think he was here now? Because he had rushed to watch Canna die. That was what her insolence had led to. He knew that one day, trash like her would tarnish the honor of their family. The girl thought to herself that he was still as inadequate as he was before. After which she said that if everything was happening the way he wanted, then why wasn't he happy? What was that lost expression on his face? He didn't look like himself at all. The young man shouted, how much longer will she behave so impudently? Let her look at herself. She is dressed in an unknown manner, all dirty, and on top of that, her face is covered in bruises. Canna replied that it was just like after his beating. Okay, let him watch as much as he wants. It's unlikely that he'll be able to see her like this again, because it will never happen again. The young man hissed that she would soon be executed. No one could stop it unless her father or her so-called husband intervened. When Canna began to calmly answer that she knew and no one was going to save her, the guy lost his temper and yelled that she could die tomorrow. Didn't she understand? Our heroine didn't understand why he was so angry. Wasn't this good news for him? Then she asked for forgiveness and said that because of her, the family's honor was tarnished, and also now Addis was in debt to the imperial family. Therefore, let the young man not be too angry with her after her death. Is this what he wanted to hear from her? How sorry he was. That is, she was not sorry at all. Dying words were a waste of time, so let her leave here. Orsini said that she has definitely gone crazy. Really not herself. She is not the same Canna Addis, which was before. Our heroine asked why he was talking to her then, because she was crazy and it was somehow wrong. Suddenly the guy told her to beg him to save her life, and for his mercy, then he would save her. Canna wondered if she had misheard it. If he had just said that he would save her, it was the funniest thing she had ever heard in her life. The princess died, and she was locked in prison and sentenced to death. She could not even imagine such a turn of events. Since such an exciting undertaking is planned, why not take part in it? Therefore, I asked if he was joking, if it really could influence the verdict. The brother replied that this was impossible until the father returned, but he could take her out of here and hide her somewhere else. The Duke will, of course, say that he does not know her, and she will have to hide for the rest of her life. She can no longer live like Canna Valentino or like Canna Addis. She will have to change her name and live a wandering life. But there is no need to worry if the sister wants. He will prepare a place for her where she can hide. The only thing is that she must swear that she will be his slave all her life. When the young man added that he should let this trash beg him on his knees, Our heroine looked into his eyes and asked if he really believed her again, after which she declared that this crazy young man should get out of here immediately. Orsini grabbed her by the shirt and pulled her towards him, asking if she really meant to say that she would prefer to die. The girl replied that yes, so let him disappear. The young man got mad that if she wanted it that way, then please, this death was just for her, and he was very happy. The girl thought to herself that he had finally left. Otherwise, he had stuck to her like a leech. Did he really think that she would grab his helping hand? Neither him, nor her father, nor her husband. Now she doesn't need anyone's help. She will protect herself. The sun will rise soon. The darkness of the night will be replaced by the sun's rays. Today is shaping up to be a very noisy day. Everyone will be stunned, especially the Empress, who will fall down from shock because the princess is alive. The Empress asked what she had just said. The maid muttered that Amelia had come to life. The woman did not understand how this was possible, because she personally checked that her heart was not beating. The maid said that the doctor reported that his pulse had returned, stable, like that of a healthy person. He also added that he most likely made an incorrect diagnosis. There's could not believe it. She insisted that it simply could not be. But the girl asked for forgiveness for her rudeness and said that the emperor himself had already checked the princess's condition. She really had come back to life. The empress screamed, "How many times do I have to repeat this? This can't be. How dare she lie about it? Everyone knows that Amelia's dead." But her daughter appeared in the room and asked how Her Majesty had been doing all this time. Let her mother forgive her for the trouble she caused. After which she asked what was wrong with her face. Wasn't she glad that her child was alive? When the woman smiled crookedly and said that she was happy, the girl then asked him to be happy for her. There's a thought to herself that her daughter was a stain on her reputation, a failed creation of a woman, something that made her a laughingstock, trash that she carried like a burden. The child who was to die, the daughter she killed. The emperor said, how could a youth, in whose veins his precious blood flows, be like that? If the records of his daughter's terminal illness remain in the imperial genealogy, then after his death, he will not even be able to look his ancestors in the eye. The descendants of the imperial family are pure. No one had any diseases. He means that there is probably impurity in the empress's lineage, and if the children of Prince Crescent will suffer from the same disease. After the emperor told her this one day, they never spent a night together again, as he considered her blood to be dirty. Does she even realize how much her reputation and the reputation of her precious son have fallen because of her? All this time, the woman has killed her many times in her imagination. She will not allow her to stand in her way and in the way of her son. That's why she used it, because no doctor could cure her, and therefore Canna would be powerless. And so it happened. She ordered to change into cotton clothes and said not to take a bath. Addis very seriously and calmly carried such nonsense. From that moment on, she realized that everything was going according to her plan. As the empress had assumed, the princess died, and the girl was found guilty of this and sentenced to death. Now Teresa could enjoy life and sleep peacefully. But as it happened that the dead Amelia came back to life again, the daughter said that she ran in for a short while to say hello, and now she was taking her leave. The daughter is alive. This all makes no sense. How did this happen? From what moment did everything go wrong? This method turned out to be wrong. Now, for some time, nothing can be done about Amelia, because if something happens after such a short period of time, she may be suspected of murder. But what to do now about Canna? The empress cannot use a pawn that she has already moved, because it may become a problem in the future. Things got very complicated. The princess was unconscious, and that's a fact, so Canna can be charged with attempted murder. The emperor, as last time, will instruct her to deal with this, since he always clings to any opportunity to insult Addis and Valentino, so we can stop there. In the meantime, it is necessary to lie low and wait, after which she realized since when she began to itch. As soon as Her Highness looked at her hands, she saw exactly the same wounds as her daughter's. The woman began to panic. Her whole body itched wildly, and she did not understand how this could have happened. Our heroine thought to herself that, how could you accept something from a stranger and then use it? Morning came, but Kana's execution did not take place, neither the next day nor later. The only thing the empress did not lie about was that her daughter was very kind. The princess always apologized when she was wrong, and along with her apologies, she tried to correct herself. That day, she offered her a tea that Addis should like and asked her to keep it a secret that they drank it together. According to Mother, this is a very, very expensive medicinal herb, so she said to drink it without sharing it with anyone, since it is impossible to get it here. But when Amelia opened the bag, the girl saw something strange in the tea. There were roots of aconite, a poisonous plant that was once used to kill silently. Sometimes in small doses it is used as a medicine, but you have to be careful because it is toxic. After which she asked, when the Empress gave it to her, how she told her to take it. The girl replied that she had received it this morning. She didn't tell me how to drink it. She said that the mixture doesn't last long, so it needs to be drunk quickly, within 4 days. Kanna had a very bad feeling that if I take it in such quantities, and for 4 days in a row, it will definitely lead to death. Is it possible that this is a coincidence, since Thirsa does not know much about Oriental medicinal herbs? Why, when she began treatment with her decoctions, did the Empress give this poisonous collection? If Amelia dies after taking aconite, isn't this a good opportunity to set her up? It's all very strange. A woman who desperately wanted her daughter to get better entrusted the treatment to her, who has a terrible reputation and no education. At the same time, she herself was late with the delivery of the medicines that were needed for treatment. When she asked Cullen for herbs for Lucy, he got them the very next day. The fact is that all the plants that she requested from the Empress and brother are listed in the Encyclopedia of the Eastern Continent, and there are no problems with delivery from there. If one has enough power and money, then one can find everything in any quantity and at any time. But in the case of aconite, everything is different. There is no record of it anywhere. The local encyclopedias left out a lot of things, so she decided to write them down separately for herself if she remembered anything. Is it possible that on the Eastern Continent, all of its properties have not yet been discovered? Even if this plant is unknown there as poisonous, then in the West no one knows about it for sure, and no one is trying to get hold of it. There is not a single person who would sell the Empress an unknown plant under the guise of medicine. It turns out that the woman intended to buy this poisonous herb, a plant obtained with difficulty, not for treatment, but for poisoning. It is unknown what the reason was, but she did it in order to kill her daughter, Ada's family and the wife of Duke Valentino, for everything, in order to disgrace these families. But none of them will come to intercede, so they will blame her for everything and close this case. It was a trap from the very beginning, but they attacked the wrong one. It's not easy to fall for the hook. After which she told the princess to listen very carefully from now on. After listening to her, the girl said that everything was clear. She believed Kanna, since she knew that one day the Empress would kill her. It all started a few years ago. It was rare, but the Empress's gaze was very sinister when she looked at her. She was really ashamed of her daughter. And Amelia is also an obstacle for the future brother, whom Thirsa loves more than anyone in the world. In general, the girl understood that Her Highness had decided to remove the trash from the road, and apparently the time had come for this. Our heroine asked if she really plans to just die. Personally, she does not want to die, being falsely accused, because she really wants to live. Having placed a cup in front of her, Kanna said that, first of all, let him die. The Empress would try to do it anyway. Just until she stops being ashamed, let her continue to poison herself with this aconite, and in general, it is better to fall into this trap. Or, to be more precise, they will pretend that the girl got into it. The Empress will understand that it doesn't work, and will never use aconite again. Then, the woman will look for a new way to arrange the murder, and this will allow them to gain time to stop being a shameful daughter. So let the princess trust her. She has some idea. At 14, Kanna wanted to die without feeling pain, and made a potion that slowed her heartbeat and was supposed to stop it. But Addis made a mistake in combining the ingredients, and the potion ended up not being lethal. The heart beat very slowly, once every minute or two. It will stop working in about a day, so the princess will wake up before she is executed. It will allow her to pretend to be dead for a while, but it will never kill her. Suddenly, servants appeared in the dungeon and asked for forgiveness for the rudeness they had allowed themselves a couple of days ago. Her Imperial Highness wishes to see the girl. Let her allow herself to be accompanied. On the way, Kanna thought that when trying to harm someone, you need to think about the fact that the same thing could happen to that person. Anyone could find themselves in the same situation. There is no need to look down on others in a situation where neither doctors nor medicines can help to cope with the burning itch. When it hurts a lot, the only thing left to do is cling to the one you considered a disposable pawn. Upon seeing the Duchess, Darcy immediately began to order her to be cured as soon as possible. Why did she get up? Let her start already. Canna didn't understand why she seemed so weakened. Had she suffered while she was in prison? Or what if she knew and didn't care? The Empress screamed, asking why she stood rooted to the spot. If she didn't hurry right now, she would face a cruel punishment. Amelia's skin. It was clear from the color of her face that her daughter was getting better. Would she be able to cure her too? But the only thing the girl managed to say was to ask for forgiveness, and she collapsed to the floor unconscious. Darcy grabbed her by the hair and screamed for her to open her eyes immediately. Apparently she fainted on purpose so as not to have to be treated. Is she really trying to lead her by the nose? The servants asked her to calm down. It seems the Duchess lost consciousness due to fatigue from being in prison. The Empress ordered them to do something, to pour water on her and wake her up. But she thought to herself that she was sick. Her flesh seemed to be burning to the very bones. How dare she pass out? Let them bring water or fire immediately. Maybe she will wake up if you set her on fire. If even this does not help, then it will simply kill her. Suddenly, the voice of the Emperor was heard, asking what kind of circus she was setting up here. The man guessed that she was quite cruel, but he didn't think that she would wave her arms like a drunkard on the road. How could one act so low? He doesn't want to see her. The woman thought to herself that the only thing she was guilty of was that she tried to do everything possible for the imperial family, and now her husband wanted to unleash all the dogs on her. Canna is to blame for everything. Because of her, the Emperor is doing this to her. She deliberately lost consciousness because she knew that His Majesty would soon be arriving. Our heroine thought to herself that she quickly figured it out. She still had plenty of strength. She was choking so hard that her head was aching. The servants tried to calm her down, but the woman did not listen to them at all. Addis thought that the screams were screams, but she was actually unconscious. Were they going to do anything at all? And the Empress, with such behavior, would only bring more troubles upon her head. And suddenly, Duke Alexander appeared in the bedroom. Darcy didn't understand why he came. He always despised his illegitimate daughter. But why now does he look as if he rushed in, dropping everything? The man silently approached Her Majesty and took our heroine into his arms. Canna herself did not understand what was happening at all, since she could not even imagine such an outcome of events, why it looked so natural. But perhaps it's even for the best. Let the Empress suffer for a few more days. Already in the carriage, the girl was surprised why he sat her next to him. There was also a seat opposite him. It was also quite wide. She could have just put her there. And in general, why did he come here? If someone sees her, they will misunderstand and think that he values her. She had goosebumps all over her body from disgust. Her eyes almost opened. She felt like she was suffocating. It was more painful than sitting in prison. Why isn't he moving? He could have been waiting for a slap to bring him to his senses. Maybe he fell asleep. But when she glanced out, she saw that the man was looking at her, so she quickly closed her eyes. After which she began to wonder if he had noticed it. She seemed to have opened her eye just a little, although she definitely hadn't, since he wouldn't have been able to sit still if he had known that Canna had come to her senses. He had to try not to give himself away until they got home. Why was he looking so closely at the face of the unconscious man? Was she really that swollen? So much so that he couldn't take his eyes off her in surprise. It's not clear at all what's going on in a man's head. You need to stop thinking about it. You just need to endure this moment. Upon arrival, the Duke even carried her to her room. Fortunately, he did not realize that she was pretending. After this, without looking back, Alexander turned around and left. Then the maid brought warm water, lamenting what had happened to her. Then our heroine felt that she began to wipe her body with a towel. It was very warm. The girl had not lain in bed for a long time, and she seemed so soft under the warm touches of the maid. Eventually, Canna fell asleep. Several days had passed since she had returned to the house of Addis. Recently, the Empress had come to her in person. Darcy did this immediately as she learned of the Duke's absence. Because of her character, she will most likely not admit her guilt, and will hiss if she knew how much pain she was in. It seems that today, the woman came again to vent all her anger on her, after which she heard a cry for her to give her medicine quickly. But she doesn't care about the Empress's character, because she is just a character whose value lies simply in her existence. This will be her salvation, like a miracle coming from heaven. Will she ever be able to forget how all the pain and suffering began to disappear before her eyes? This will forever remain in the memory of the Empress. From that moment on, Thirse will owe its existence to her. When the woman fell ill with this disgusting disease, she was accompanied only by pain, pain, and more pain, as if her whole body was being burned and torn to pieces. It all did not stop for a second. Neither strength, nor power, nor the fortune she had accumulated over the years could in any way ease her suffering. She must stop this by any means, so let him bring her the medicine immediately. Canna must give it to her. Addis must do everything for her. However, the Empress was confused when she finally received the necessary mixture. Teresa was shocked, because after this all the pain disappeared, as if by magic. It was not an easy medicine, it became a salvation for her. But the feeling of incredible relief lasted only a few seconds. The real torture begins the moment there is a glimmer of hope. She needs more medicine, this is not enough. Therefore, she began to ask for forgiveness for everything that she did to her. Since she was wrong, let her forgive her. The shame, humiliation, insult, and anger that she felt a couple of days ago no longer matter. Now she just wants to get rid of this pain. Continuing to sob, Her Highness thought that now this girl was like God to her. The woman will give her everything she has. Just please let her give her the potion one more time. Our heroine said that after observing her, she realized that her illness was similar to her daughter's. But due to her age, it seemed that her condition had worsened and become worse than the princess's. Don't worry, the diseases themselves are similar, so making a medicine won't be difficult. But the effect of it will be short-lived. Like last time, unfortunately, at the moment she could not develop the perfect medicine for this disease. Teresa exclaimed that she would be glad even for a moment. But the girl objected that there was no need to say that, since she was going to cure her completely. The Empress thought to herself that she would really make so much effort after the woman had treated her like that. If it had been anyone else, she would not have done so. She said that how could she, a subject of the empire, close her eyes to the suffering of the mother of the entire empire? She will conduct research and try to create a medicine that could prolong the pain-relieving effect. Perhaps someday she will be able to make a remedy that can completely cure her. Teresa did not understand how this was possible, how one could show mercy and sincerely care for a person who had done so much harm to her. How wrong the woman was from the very beginning. How stupid she was. Canna is different from ordinary people. When the girl added that she needed the materials, the Empress exclaimed that she should just say what she needed: money, assistance, herbs, and everything else that she would need for the research. She would prepare everything. Let her forgive her once again. Thank you very much. Her Highness is simply immensely grateful to her. Our heroine thought to herself that her plan had been a success, and now she could have a little fun. The highest-ranking person in this empire cries and whines at her feet, like a wounded animal, after which she said that she was very sorry. How did it happen that she caught this infection? After Addis gave the Empress medicine with a short-term effect, she began to fulfill all her wishes. A herbal room appeared in her laboratory, and it was filled with various medicinal plants from all over the eastern continent. Now there would be no need to beg for them through other people. There was another person who was pleased with this news. The princess asked in surprise if her mother had really knelt before her. Canna answered that yes, because she had doused herself with perfume, to which something had been added. Amelia replied that she was so strict with her, telling her not to show her body under any circumstances, and especially not to scratch. Addis thought to herself that this fake case with the Empress should be kept secret. She and the princess are in the same boat. However, on her side, she got the set: Amelia and Teresa. Suddenly, the girl was informed that His Highness Prince Crescent had arrived. Almost immediately, a young man appeared and asked if his sister was feeling better. Since he was very worried about her, our heroine thought to herself that she still had many questions about what kind of person he was. Amelia said that she heard that, before the Duchess was captured, he gave her an antidote, so it turns out the guy knew that she was going to be set up. The young man replied that he knew that his mother was going to do this. I'm not sure if she knows about it, but from the moment Canna began to treat her, The empress forbade anyone to approach the palace. He tried to stop it with his own methods, but his mother found out about it every time and blocked his path. The guy couldn't send his people here or bring the antidote himself, so he had to meet with Kana. But the young man was late. Let his sister forgive him for not being able to help in time. Our heroine did not understand why he was talking about this. Amelia must now pretend that she does not know about the Empress's plans, why he came and told about everything, after which the young man asked what his sister was going to do next. If she wished, he could act as a witness, whether she wanted to tell her father everything. The girl panicked that he was lying. It couldn't be that he just helped. Crescent came to pull out the sprout by the roots, and it was Amelia. The Mershi Count's family dominates the continent due to their wealth. They are an elite family that has produced many empresses. The current one is also from there. The head of the family is the younger brother Teresa. They are known for their close relationship, so much so that the will of the woman is equal to the will of Mershi. If Her Highness is accused, the whole family will be involved, and Crescent, who received patronage from Mershi, will lose his strongest and most powerful support. The prince, who is in the midst of a political battle for the future throne, has decided to challenge the Mercy family and the Empress. This cannot be. He is checking whether Amelia is going to take revenge. Unexpectedly, the princess said that she did not understand at all what he was talking about. Does your brother want to say that Her Majesty tried to poison her? Amelia doesn't understand what he means. Let him not say such things again. Suddenly someone will hear. It's even scary to imagine what people will think. The young man asked for forgiveness and said that he seemed to have misunderstood something. His sister was very wise. Our heroine thought to herself that the princess had guessed, and that was, of course, good. But there was clearly trouble with this imperial family. The empress tried to kill her own daughter, and the brother and sister do not trust each other and hide their true faces. Is it even possible to survive in such a family without shedding tears and blood? It is only surprising that the prince acted like a true brother and gave the antidote to save Amelia. It seems that this was his last piece of conscience, then said that it was time for her to go. After that day, time flew by quickly, and 2 weeks had already passed, during which time the capital became quiet. It seemed as if several decades had passed since the news of the princess's death and her execution. As a rule, in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, other people's stories are quickly forgotten, and she didn't notice how her life became calmer. The princess's treatment is going well, and she is close to a full recovery. The Addis men went to the black fog again, and Chloe and Isabel don't touch her. Suddenly, knights appeared and declared that Countess Josephine Ellister gave her the order to return home immediately. Canna didn't understand what was happening, why there were so many of them. She herself had kicked her out, and now she was calling her back, and in order to convey the order, she sent a whole squad. It's like a threat. If she doesn't agree, they'll take her by force. It's unclear what to expect, but it's clearly not all out of good intentions. After which she said that she was not feeling well and was still weak. They probably knew that she was falsely accused, put in prison, and the girl was released only recently. One of the men objected that the Valentino family also had outstanding doctors, and they would be able to look after her no worse than here. Addis thought to herself that she would be lucky if she didn't kick the bucket there. There was no way to come to an agreement with them, so she had to find another way. Suddenly, Chloe appeared, who told her not to be stubborn and to go home, because her mother-in-law wanted the girl to come back. Escape also has its limits. How many months has she been visiting them? It was not just anyone who approached her, but her mother-in-law. Even if she feels unwell, she needs to go. If she dies, she must do so in the Valentino family. It is her duty as a daughter-in-law. After which she turned to the knights and told them to accompany her quickly. The men thanked her for their cooperation. Canna thought to herself that it was all a setup. No one was home, and this was the perfect opportunity to send her away. There was no point in resisting in this situation, so she replied that she would go. Just let them give her time to get ready. After some time, at the Valentino estate, the woman immediately began to scream that she was a disgrace to the family. Because of her, their reputation had fallen sharply. Does she understand this? Our heroine did not understand why her cheek was being used as a punching bag for everyone, while her mother-in-law was screaming at her, asking if she knew that now. Because of her, They were talking about their family if she understood what she had done. It was discussed in high society that the Duchess was tried in front of commoners, mistake or not, but she had caused harm to the imperial family. Because of what she had done, Josephine had to listen to all this talk. Let her not even think about leaving the house in the near future, after which she ordered to lock her in the room. When asked if she was going to let her out, the woman replied that while she was wandering outside the house, her reputation had suffered greatly, so for some time, she shouldn't even dream about it. The girl objected that she needed to treat Her Highness, but her mother-in-law said to refuse this. Did she really want to do something wrong again? Elister herself will tell the Empress everything. Let her never interfere with her medicine again. The Countess ordered that all her outer clothing be taken away from her so that she could not go out secretly, and also forbade her from wearing jewelry. Josephine left her in a nightgown with a thin cape and forbade her to leave the house for several months. This was enough to drive her crazy, but she tried to restrain herself. When the girl left the room and the knights tried to object that she should not go out, she sprayed some substance in their faces. Our heroine grabbed it just in case, hid it securely on herself. How good it was that it wasn't taken. Of course, if she had waited until the Empress ran out of medicine, Teresa would have come for her. But last time, she gave her too much, and she didn't plan on sitting in the room for long. I really wanted to go out, but my clothes were too thin and all see-through. Sylviane's room is on that side. There is a high probability that he is not at home. In her memories over the past 7 years, he rarely stayed at home. So our heroine decided to go into his bedroom and steal the cape. While she was looking for where the closet was, a voice was heard asking what she was doing there. The young man asked what she was doing in someone else's bedroom, and in such a state. Canna tried to cover herself, and was indignant to herself that he could clearly see what she was wearing, and didn't even turn away. And he still dared to look at her, after which she replied that she didn't know that he was there. If she had known, she wouldn't have gone in. Our heroine did not know what to answer to his question about why she came. She could not say that she wanted to take the cape to run away from home. Suddenly, the guy said that he heard about what she had to go through, but nevertheless, she looked better than he expected. The young man knows that she is trying to get out of all the difficulties, but is he aware that all her efforts are causing trouble for Valentino? Addis thought to herself that this was a sharp condemnation. His voice was like a calm lake, but what he was saying was clearly criticism and reprimand. An unpleasant accusation based on a misunderstanding. An accusation that she brought herself to death for attention. What a disgusting person he is. Her patience also has its limits. After which she took a deep breath to answer him, but Sylvian interrupted her and said, "Okay." Then he suggested that he compromise with her, namely on the bed. Or perhaps there was another place where she would like to do it. The girl thought to herself that he still did not value her at all, and said that it seemed he wanted something from her. The Duke replied that he did, after which he suggested that they live quietly and peacefully as before. In his opinion, as before, this, as the last 7 years, as Canna's whole life in general, to be more invisible than a shadow, to live as if it had never existed. Then she said that he wanted to sleep with her instead. Sylvian replied that this meant that he would fulfill his husband's duty in some way. Wasn't that what she wanted? Our heroine thought to herself that she had not given him any reason to think so, and he replied that he did not want that. She never wanted this, and besides, he offers her to tumble with him, looking at her with such a humiliating look. The young man replied that she had better be as honest as before. All her actions and words seemed to him like a trick to attract attention, and it has gotten to the point where it has become terribly annoying. It seems like the guy thinks that it will be faster and cheaper to solve everything with the body. If so, then that is enough, because she no longer sees the need to have a conversation with him in a sane manner, after which she replied that, "Good, then Canna will say what she wants." But she thought to herself that this does not mean that she is going to ignore the humiliation. Then she began to gradually approach him and say that the reason she came here was that he doesn't need to know, after which she sprayed the same drug that knocked out the guards in his face. Let him not take into his head what she wants. Let him not think about it at all, because it is none of his business. This smell immediately put even experienced knights to sleep. Now he too will be alone, lying in his bed, and while he sleeps, she will take the cloak. But it seemed that this had no effect on the Duke, and the girl did not understand why he did not fall. The young man asked what she had just done. Was she really going to attack him? Our heroine didn't understand why she wasn't turning off, so she decided that she simply hadn't sprayed enough. But again, there was no reaction, which was to be proven. It does not affect him. Kanna tried to calm down and thought to herself that, they say, if you gather your courage, you can even get out of a tiger's den alive. After which she said that she thought that he probably couldn't sleep because of all his affairs and duties. So she wanted to ease his fatigue, because sleep is the most necessary thing in life. The Duke muttered that it couldn't be. Addis thought to herself that his expression indicated that even a kneeling pardon wouldn't work. Suddenly, Sylvian pulled the device out of her hands and began spraying it on her, saying that she had become very interesting lately. Kanna immediately began to lose consciousness and think about the fact that an immediate effect had happened to her. So why didn't it work on him? Meanwhile, Chloe was thinking that finally, after a long time, she could calmly enjoy her tea. She didn't think that Valentino would deal with this headless Kanna themselves. Everything was even for the better. Finally, life became calmer. Suddenly, a maid entered the room and announced that the Duke had returned to the estate. Alexander is very stubborn, so he has his own chambers. Even she, as his wife, cannot share his bed for more than a couple of hours. But it's okay, because he doesn't only treat her like this, he also does not let other people near him with his cold-bloodedness and indifference. The man is indifferent to everything in this world. The woman said that she was glad to see him. He had done a good job. If he had not yet taken a bath, then let her help him with it. When her husband replied that it was not necessary, Chloe noted to herself that, as she expected, he immediately refused. After all, she knows him very well. After which she said that she heard that this time evil spirits came out of the black fog. Until recently, everything was quiet. But recently, the situation has worsened again. He made great efforts to protect the empire and the entire Western continent. It may sound like an empty phrase, but it is true. The descendants of divine beings are the paladins of the current magical era. If there were no descendants of the Alexander family, Addis and Valentino, then the Western continent would have followed the same path of destruction as the southern one. Of course, the temple also plays a role in this to some extent, but its influence is not as strong as that of the descendants of the paladins, who can directly resist the black fog. The man in front of her is essentially the world of the entire Western continent, and he is her husband, and she cannot allow a man to worry about useless things. After which she said that he was very tired during his absence, so now he needed to have a good rest at home so that nothing would bother him. The woman had already dealt with one of the problems. The Duke must have been very uncomfortable with this Kanna all this time. Chloe didn't understand what kind of reaction this was, and why he was looking at her so strangely. How much time had passed since he last looked at her? Maybe she needed to explain. Then she muttered that the Valentino family had called the girl back to them, so she let her go. The wife had the feeling that she was making excuses, as if she had done something wrong, and added that there was no need to worry. Kanna would not bother him anymore. I thought to myself that it was somehow strange that a person who treated everything with equal indifference could not be attracted by the mention of an illegitimate daughter. Because of what did this oppressive feeling arise? After some time, Cullen wondered if Kanna Valentino returned back on her own. Mother replied that, of course, she left of her own free will, or he thought that Chloe had thrown her out. The guy thought to himself that this was really possible. She had stopped at their house to get permission from her father for a divorce, after which he asked what had happened while he was gone. They say that his sister was almost executed because of a misunderstanding, but now she has started treating Teresa again. Isabel exclaimed, "What difference does it make? She has returned home, and that is good." The young man asked what his father said to this. The woman muttered what else he could say to this. Cullen asked his mother to talk about this in more detail, and Orsini exclaimed that he knew it would be so. She always ran after Duke Valentino, and in the end, like a little dog, she returned to him. How stupid. Kanna planned everything from the very beginning to attract her husband's attention, but it didn't work, so she came back herself. How pathetic. Who would care about someone like her? The girl used him and the entire Addis family in order to attract the attention of Sylviane. Isabel asked why he was so angry about this. Orsini replied, because Canna was a complete hopeless fool. Let them just look at what this trash did to win Valentino. She fooled Addis, deceived him. That is why she did not accept his proposal, because she thought that Valentino would come for her. She was waiting for him and no one else. Cullen asked if something had happened between them. The brother objected that he could have something in common with this trash. Everything worked out just fine. Let him tell her that she should never come back here and not catch his eye, because if she sees him again, she will get into trouble.